Howdy, howdy, howdy. I'm late. I'm late for a very important date with you. Apologies for being late. I had to finish something for work. You know how it goes. Hope you're having an awesome day so far. We're just gonna, do the usual, like tell everybody we're live, do all the things, hang out, do some rails again. You know, the good good. The good good. Hope you're all having a good one. It's been an interesting Thursday, to say the least. Don't know if that's true for you, but that's definitely true for me. But, yeah. Let's get into it. Let's start doing stuff. Let's talk about what we're building today. Let's see if we need to deviate the plan. But, let's review last week. Let's start with reviewing what we did last week, because I always like to start there. So, what do y'all need to see? Well, first off, now we can actually get here, and we want to get the Heartbound OST playing because we've been enjoying that soundtrack, right? It's not just me, hopefully. I don't know. I'm liking it. I've been thoroughly enjoying it. I want to shuffle it. And we're going to turn that way down. Woo, that was loud. All right, we're going to fix some lighting. And we're going to hang out. There we go. We got music. We've got visuals. We're going to actually also, I realized last week that y'all couldn't see the chat. And nobody said anything to me. And now I feel like an absolute jerk. So, hey, there's the chat. So when I reference things in the VOD, y'all will actually know what I'm talking about now. So now I feel like less of a dummy head. Yeah. So let's talk about last week. What did we do? Well, we did our first form. We built this lovely, lovely form. It's got validation, as you can see. You know, we got validation, we got inline errors, internationalization to some degree. We made our menus not suck. What else did we do? Yeah, we just kind of did a lot to make this work. Oh, I'll tell you, it was fascinating. I'm gonna see if I can pull this open safely off screen for a second. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't just open that up. Where is it? So one of the problems that we faced last week turned into an actual pretty popular discussion on LinkedIn. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? So if y'all recognize it, the problem is, what's wrong with this code? And you recognize we have this enum here that's trying to validate this enum. And like we learned last week that this didn't work for us. We had to delete the enum. And there's a cool little discussion going on. So I'm actually, the person Carlos said that he would post the response. I'm actually curious. Let's see where his comment. The problem is on line 3. This won't work. This validation will throw an error. And declare an enum attribute when the value is mapped to integers in the database, but can be queried by name. So this is what we were kind of doing before. But why? What's the problem here, Carlos? You didn't actually tell us what was wrong. Yeah, it's line 3. I mean, I've basically flagged it. It's roles.key isn't a thing. Oh, statuses is a thing, actually. I lied. What? Scope based on the allowed values of the enum will be provided as well. With the above example, conversation active, conversation archived. Yeah, those are the statuses. I agree with that. Of course, you can also write them into the query. I like that. You can set the default value from the database declaration. Okay. Good practice is to let the first declared status be the default. Finally, it's also possible to explicitly map the relationship between attribute and database integer with a hash. Note that when an array is used, the implicit mapping from the values of the database integers is derived from the order that the values appeared in the array. In the example, active is mapped to 0 as it's the first element, and archived is mapped to 1. In general, the ith element is mapped to I-1 in the database. Therefore, once a value is added to the array, its position array must be maintained, and new values should only be added to the end. To remove unused values, the explicit hash syntax could be used. Right? We're in agreement. You can use the prefix or postfix. So yeah, you can look up the statuses. And with the above example, the bang and predicate methods, along with the associated scopes, are now prefixed and are subsexed accordingly. Huh. This guy didn't actually answer the question. Let's see. Is there anything? Something. The enum will throw an error if role isn't one of the. Oh. Well, this is cool. This is kind of in response to us a little bit, right? We kind of found out that like inclusion. I also wrote my answer, right? Inclusion and enum are kind of in conflict with one another, and so though this person's saying you don't need both because one will take care of the other. So that's interesting. I wish the full answer was actually shared here. Oh well. I thought it was an interesting conversation because we literally ran into this last week. But yeah, so last week we were kind of working on making this form, and part of this too was when we go to like look at all of our events and we go to edit it, like we can see that the same form is used. And oh, that's right, we also got into the mode of doing our first ever whatchamacallit, our first ever stimulus controller. So we wrote stimulus to make this dynamically show hide, and just kind of reviewing the code at a high level, right? So we go to the event form. We have here we go. So like here's our form now, and you can see it's just very semantic. And actually, this is something we didn't do last week. We should totally do right now. Is we have Axe now, thanks to our friend Todd Libby. And we should actually make sure that we have no issues, and we don't. So this is great. We got rid of some problems, which we're very happy about. So if we come back, what we can see is we kind of just did, and this honestly looks like Bootstrap to me. If I'm being honest, I think I just rewrote Bootstrap, but we just have some classes here that allow us to, structure our content in a specific way. We display the errors in a specific way, and it's just kind of, making things as easy as possible. So everything's just kind of displayed, and then we made some custom selects. And you can start to see like there's some form targeting here, and this is where stimulus was coming in. And then over here we have this data target, and this is also for stimulus. So all of that was just stimulus code. And if we go look at the stimulus controller itself, you can see that it's not a whole lot of code. It's just, here are the targets, and if our venue type target, which is some magic that's happening here, but it's taking the venue type name, concatenating it with targets, and just making that an accessible property on this. What we find is, hey, venue target value, which because it's the input field, we're able to read its value. We're saying if it's not online, grab the target, like the rest of the targets in the list, grab their class list, and just add or remove the hidden class so they show hide correctly. And, that's that's all there is to it. It's pretty straightforward JavaScript, if you ask me. And it connects to this data controller event form. So if we look for the data controller in here, you can see that we added that at the top of our form. So that just gets bound. And so all of this is now just a lovely reusable form. We can show it in multiple contexts. We've got some placeholders. We've got some nice data. And then the other thing we spent a lot of time on last week, if y'all remember, is we just wrote a crap ton of validations, and we wanted to make sure that we got all our validations right. So we have a lot of validation. We still haven't done this venue validator, but that's fine. This isn't the biggest deal in the world. So that's kind of where we left off last week. That's what we've built. And we can switch events. Ooh, that's a nice little bug. Check this out. Now we have a little bug that we're gonna have to go fix. We're editing an event. So there's a lot of nice little business logic that we might want to be considering as we're clicking through things. So we'll add that to the list of when switching events or organizations can still access previous event, our previous organization's content. So yeah, so that's kind of where we were. And I haven't really decided where to go today, if I'm going to be completely honest. Like, one of the things I said is rethinking, this screen a little bit. Like, right now we're showing everything in like these little card things, but maybe this should be a table. Maybe it should even be a data table. But we haven't really made any decisions around that yet. And, all right. So I think, yeah, let's go here. Let's fix this real quick. Let's talk about kind of like why I would change this, and then let's just do it. It'll be kind of step one, and maybe we'll tackle some of the fun little to-dos in this that I've kind of left for us, like styling, bypasses. We can pull from our to-do list. So, big thing here is we got a bunch of events here, and this really should be a paginated list as time goes on. Now, we're very early in this event. We're very early in this platform. There's only a few items, but as this list grows, we're going to want people to probably paginate results. We're also going to want to show more information here. So, and this is maybe going to open the door to some of like the additional features we should start considering. So let's start here. So first things first, we're going to go open up our events controller. And we're going to go open up our events index page, because these are kind of the two related pages here, right? And if we look at our index real quick, we can see that, like, hey, I have to be able to access the current organization, and I have to make sure that the organization is not nil. And this all works for me. All of this information is correct, and that's what's going to let us see what's here. Now, we don't need to change any of the data we're pulling yet. Keyword there. But if we come to the index here, what we're going to see is we've got a notice, if there is one. We've got this heading that says we're on the events. We've got a div that's the ID, and we're calling it the events grid. This is something we're going to revisit right now. And then we have a link to go kind of create a new event. I think what I want to do here is I actually want to move this button up into the header. And then I want to turn this into a table. And the reason I want to do that is if I want to create a new event, I kind of want to just have somebody have like a quick action, like this, like a quick action menu that they're going to want. But then the other reason is we move this table because there's information that we don't currently have, and we want people to be able to go see real quick. There's also maybe more actions that we want people to be able to do here. For instance, we don't really need both a show and an edit. What we really want is people to go look at their event, and if they need to edit it or destroy it or whatever, they can go click through these. So I think that's the next thing we're going to do real fast. So let's do this. So the way I want to do this is we're going to do a div here, And this is going to end up being a row. And I think what we can do is this is almost like a, we're going to call this a page title. The reason we're going to call this page title is I'm assuming most pages will have something like this where it's like, here's the name of the page and then here's like its action bar. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's right. We don't really know yet, but let's just start there. And what we have is we have our H1, and then what we'll also have is we're going to just have a div in here that we're going to kind of call, I'm going to call them quick actions for now, because it might have a different meaning in a different context, but let's just start there. So this is our page title, and this is going to be our quick actions. So now we need to go and actually create this CSS. Now, there's two ways we can do it, right? One is I can go create a specific file like we've done a few times now. And if you remember, we have button, drop-down form, navigation. But I don't really think that the styles I'm about to create are necessarily super specific. These feel more generic. And if I got to the point where I was like, oh, well, this page needs custom CSS, but this other page doesn't, I wanted to like play that game, there's a way to create custom CSS per page and load that in Rails. But like that's an overkill feature and our CSS bundle isn't that big yet. So I think we want to avoid that for now. So let's go ahead and start messing with it down here. So we have page title, and then we're also going to have quick actions inside of a page title, right? And inside of our page title, what we really want is this is going to be a display of flex. And then let's just put an ampersand there real quick because that's what we want. And then what we want is we want the flex direction to be the row. So far, I like what I've done. So if we look at this real quick, we can see, hey, everything's in the row. We want to align our items so they're in the same kind of horizontal spacing here. Now, there's some interesting things here that I kind of want to fix. So let's go start inspecting a little bit. If we look here, there's a lot of space. And the reason there's a lot of space, I think, is actually this element right here. Sure enough, that's what it was. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just do a quick conditional around this element, which is if there is a notice, we can render that element. Otherwise, we don't want to take up all that space. And you can see like our padding's a lot better. We feel good about our spacing. Now, our style on events might not be great. And that's something we can fix. And this is where we can start, you know, styling our heading tags a little bit. So like in this case, maybe I want the H1 to be font size 2, font weight can be, 800. And sure enough, that's kind of where we are already. It wasn't too different than what was already there. I guess it's the default of the browser, but if we look, 2rem is about, well, that doesn't seem right. Shouldn't be that big. 32 pixels, there we go. So this is a pretty big title, right? We might decide on like smaller screen sizes, whatnot. We want it to be like half a rem or whatever. But for now, I think, just playing with a few different sizes for a second. I think 2's fine. 2's reasonable, and we're gonna go with that for now. The other thing we want is we want this event to be a call to action now. Now we don't want it to be our primary call to action. We want it to be a secondary one. So if you remember, we made some button classes. And what I want to do is I actually want to just set this to button secondary. And the reason I want it to be button secondary, not primary, is think about the user experience. Like, I don't always want them coming to this page and creating an event. It's not actually the primary action I want them to be doing. It's something they could do, but it's not the primary action. There might be other primary actions I want. So I want to give this kind of my secondary look when it's here. And as you can see, pretty sure I don't have to do both. Yeah, I don't have to do both. Which actually reminds me, I noticed something in the VOD. I wrote a lot of like button all over the place, and I realized I didn't actually need to do that. Like this is fine. This will just work. So now what we got, so just fixing up some styles now. Now we got an H1 that we can style. We can go change this later if we want. We've got this lovely, nice size button, but now we want the button to be on the other side of the screen. Is kind of what we want. So what we can do here is we want to say, I'm going space between is kind of what I'm deciding. And as you can see, now we have all of our elements kind of left and right here. So everything's kind of where we wanted to align it. Now you'll notice I didn't actually use any styles here. And the reason is we don't need any yet. And so I'm actually going to get rid of that altogether. But I'm still calling this class quick actions because this is more of like a canonical grouping. So when somebody's looking at building this, they're like, oh yeah, I want to put things in a thing and maybe I'll do some styling later to it. It's an easy to find, you know, grouping. So now we kind of like have given semantic meaning to these divs that have no semantic meaning. It's not really, I mean, well, hold on now. I'm thinking out loud. For now, there's only one link. In the future, there might be more links. But this could be a secondary nav in the future. In fact, this is a nav. So we're going to go back on my own word here for a second. We're actually going to make this a nav. Now, this is going to create a problem though. And if we go to Axe, hopefully it'll tell us what that problem is. I say hopefully, I'm not sure. Okay, so it didn't, but there's a problem now. I have two navigations on the page. Now the good news is, when we look in for just a minute, we can actually see that this header navigation already has its aria and it's all listed, right? But this other one doesn't have kind of any information yet. So what I am going to do here is I'm going to say this is an aria that is labeled by, and we're going to call this quick actions, right? And we're going to follow what our friend Todd told us last week. And for now, we're going to just put this in an li. Now, is this the right thing to do? I'll be honest, I don't know yet. But for now, it gives our elements a little more semantic meaning. And we're going to have to be a little careful here, but we basically need this to be unstyled, right? So if we come, and the reason we need this to be unstyled is we don't want this little dot here. But this is letting us kind of have a, well, it's going to be twofold. It's going to be an inline unstyled list. And actually, that might be redundant for us. We might just call it inline. And the reason we're doing this is if I put this here all of a sudden, two buttons. Let's say I said this is quick actions, not quick action. So I might have two of these over time, and I want to just kind of quickly make that available. So remember when I said I wasn't going to give our quick action thing any styles? Well, now I am. But now it can just be the div, like I said. Except it's not actually a div. We're going to do this a little differently. So we've got a bunch of global styles here, and I started to play with global styles. But what we want to do is we want to start playing with the idea of having an inline list. And as you can see, I'm going to go and kind of do a little love here. So for any ordered or unordered list that I give the style of inline to, and you should probably never do this to an ordered list if we're being honest, but for unordered, it's okay. And actually, I am going to go ahead and just make that executive decision now. This only applies to unordered. If I did it with an ordered list, I would do it a little differently, because right now it's saying the list style is none, but that's only true for this one case. The other thing we need to do is we want this to actually have X padding. And oh, that's right. I don't want padding on the inline itself. This is smart. It knew what I wanted. But what I do want is on the li. Let's see how that looks. Maybe a bit too much. Why? Oh, this is also interesting. So I'm in a situation where I actually want the padding to be left, not right. And that's because this is a right aligned list and not a left aligned list. Like if this list was over on the left hand side, I would want the margin to go the other direction. So I wonder how we could do. Let's go look at how Tailwind does it. I don't think it has a good solution for this, but we basically want. Oh, you know what? No, we're gonna be even smarter here. We're gonna do. I'll tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna make this space between. That didn't work the way I was hoping it would. All right, well, we're gonna go see what space between does. Space between is if there's a thing and a thing and they always go to the left. All right, fine. We'll make this work. So effectively what we want here is we want this styling, but it's really li plus li. We don't want any other elements to work this way, and it only needs to go to the left. So let's try that out. This is pretty close to what we were hoping for. And as you can see, that's going to look nice. And if this list, just to give us an example here, we come and we take this list and we put it, let's just put it on the next line here, just as an example. See how this is still lining up nicely on the left border? That's because the margin left's not busted up. So we've kind of solved this problem, and I'm very happy with that. So we kind of got margin left, margin right. Now, I think there's too much margin. I'm saying it, I added it. I think one rim is maybe too much, but if we reduce it down to like half a rim, that looks pretty good. Now we could put like 2 actions here and not feel super bad about it. But in our example today, we don't have 2 actions. So we're gonna get rid of the secondary action for now. And while this isn't truly a list, it's going to be truly a list later. And that's all we need to do. So we'll kind of fix problem 1. We fix problem 2. We fix problem 3. We got 3 problems down. Now we need to talk about this table. All right, what is going to become a table? Kind of gave away what I'm doing. So right now I've kind of done this grid, and this grid's really a list of things. And as you can see, kind of treated it like a list of things. Really what I want here though is I want, and this is where I'm debating a little bit. I want a table, but I don't really want a table, if that makes sense. And this is where best practices come into play. So I'm kind of curious, should I use a table or a CSS grid? Because this is like interesting things. Okay, so let's see what this report says. How do I choose? So table first, this discussion about the differences is nothing new. Yep, tables are a complex way of displaying data in a structured format, while grids offer a more flexible approach that can be used for both tabular data and more complex layouts. There are many types of tables and grid components available, each with its own advantage and disadvantage. The key difference between them is the level of flexibility they offer. A table is a type of layout that organizes content, and tables are great for displaying data in easy-to-read format, but they're not ideal for creating complex layouts. They can be used to track customer purchases, inventory levels, sales figures, and any type of business information. Tables make it great to see relationships between data points. They can manipulate to reveal different insights. Yeah, this is true. Grid, on the other hand, is a type of layout that uses a system of horizontal and vertical lines to create cells. These cells can hold content, making grids perfect for creating complex layouts. Grids are also responsive, meaning they can adjust to different screen sizes. Grids are better suited for displaying information that is more evenly distributed, such as geographical data. Now, here we go. Using between the two. Use tables to effectively display data organized into rows and columns. Opt for grids when you need to present data graphically, like bar charts, line, or pie. If you're going to need to display numerical information with precision accuracy, for example, statistics of figures, then a table should be used. Focus on comparing numerical value. So if we're comparing data, they're saying do that. But let's ask the question accessibility. Where is... Let's see what Sarah says. and causing an outsized amount of pain developers who are trying to accessibility. Right, part of the flood of grid accessibility questions might be caused by a quirk of where I've worked, but I don't think the only reason tables and grids are overrepresented in accessibility bugs. The semantics for divs and grids are relatively complex and can unexpectedly break two extra divs or CSS display values. Okay. Use a grid when a table is needed, or vice versa. Let's use a zero post to take a deeper dive, and tables and grids can go wrong. Semantics and keyboard navigation. Small few points. What is a table really? For example, here are two different ways to represent the same one, which delivers a two-dimensional relationship and one does not. The first example makes it easy for users to skim items, items, not times, and locations, but oh, I guess times too. Oh, she meant times. I'm sorry. She did. That was bad of me. Both are valid choices depending on what is deemed most important for a user in the context when the events are displayed. So the important thing is that if a design decision is made to structure information as a table to surface column and row relationships, it needs to be semantically marked up as a table to provide that same experience to screen reader users. Well, there we go. That's our answer. We're not using a CSS grid. We're going to use a table. And here's why. This information here that we were talking about, I want these to line up. I want people to be able to scan that quickly. And that's kind of what's going wrong here, is we want these tables to be done in a way that makes it easier to read. So we're actually going to redo this as a table, and we're going to do it the right way. So let's go ahead and just say we want to make a table, and we'll close it off. Now, tables have a few different properties that we need to make sure we're doing. First is the head. Second's the body. And the difference between these is kind of one defines the structure of our table, while the other one is going to define the content of our table. So in here, what we're going to have is we're going to have a row, just one. Now we could have two, but we're only going to do one. And in our case, name starts at, ends at, location, actions. That's pretty close to what we want. And so that's what we're going to go with. We're going to use this for now, and we'll learn why we're going to do other things later. But if we do this real quick and we just re-render our page, you can see, hey, look at this. There are titles. Now, there's no grid, there's no lineup. It's like, I wonder how this is actually going to look when we put data into it. And so that's where we're going to do our kind of next friend here. And this is where, if you remember, we had our events before, and we were iterating over them. So we're going to iterate over those today. So, boop, boop. Let's go ahead and just put our TR back into place, but this time with this loop iterator around it. Now, what we can do here, which is super handy, is we can now translate this into each of our event items that we wanted. So in here, we get the event starts at. And what we're going to just see real quick is, assuming I didn't typo anything, we can see like, hey, here's all of our data starting to render pretty well. Now, one of the things I messed up here is these aren't actually THs, these are TDs. And that actually makes all the difference because that's what's making it all bold and stuff. But now we can see like, hey, here's our table. Here is structure. And what you see is our data just happens to be rendering in a specific order here. And the reason it's ordering well is because we wrote our data in a certain way, but we're using what Rails does by default is when, and actually we should look at that. What Rails does by default is when it is pulling, and here, let's just refresh the page. So somewhere in here, what we're going to see, so here, this is also worth noting. Look at all the database calls we're making. So we have a database call here. We have another one here. We got another one here. Like there's a lot of layers of queries happening. And that's okay. We're going to fix some of this right now. But if we look at it, Rails is just doing a generic unsorted, unordered sort. Or unordered fetch. So it's just grabbing all the events by the platform organization ID, which means our events aren't necessarily going to be ordered in any particular fashion. Now we can go ahead and fix that, by just kind of in here when we say, hey, I want to get my events, but I also want to like order them by, let's say we want to order by start at, right? If we go refresh here, you're going to see that it's the exact same thing. But what you can do, assuming I actually remember how active record order works, you can you'd order by a field, and then you can colon, and then it's a colon. That's what it is. So if I wanted it in descending order, so I want the events that are going to happen newest first, you see all of a sudden I get exactly that behavior. And that's something we want to just be mindful of, because we're going to give the user some power here when it comes to this. So this is something we're going to do. We're going to add some business logic around tables and table sorting for this user. Let's go finish just kind of rendering our data, because we've started that journey, and we should put all of the things that we think a user will actually care about. So we want indat, and then we're actually going to want to put two more things. We're going to want to put the registration start at and the registration end at. And the reason we want the registration start and the registration end here is because what we're going to see is we're going to want whoever our user is to be able to go in and quickly see, like, hey, is my registration open, and are my dates happening? So these are going to be two different important aspects of what we're thinking about. And also, hello, Arnie. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you around today. How's your Thursday going? So that's kind of where we're starting. That's where we are. So we're going to just say registration here. My day is doing all right. We just started a little while ago. We're trying to make our UIs better, making our user experiences better. We can already see we're going to have a lot to do to improve upon. But, you know, one day at a time, right? One day at a time. All right. Now, this other thing is this location right here, right? Now, here's where some interesting business logic starts to come into play. If we remember, events can be online, offline, or hybrid. We kind of want to share this with the user, and we kind of want to show them, like, hey, where do we need to be? Where do I need to be when I'm trying to manage this event? Now, I don't think it actually has value on this particular screen. This is more of a detail. Yeah, not a perfectly readable time format, but you know, it'll work eventually. So actually, that's a good point, though. Let's fix these times, because these are pretty terrible to read. So Rails has a lot of datetime format helpers, which I really love. And I just kind of want to... we kind of have explored these before. But we want to format this in a sane way. I'm trying to remember exactly what the format is. It is after ISO standards, so they can't complain. I mean, you say that, but users like to complain about a lot of things, and so you want to make sure that you're formatting things in a way that makes sense to them. So in our case, what we want to do is we want to format it. We want to format these kind of well. So what we're going to try and do here is we're going to borrow this FS format here, and we're going to see which one of these formats we like the most. And for me, I'm really liking... which one am I liking? Which one do you like the most, Arnie? I'll take opinions. I think I know where I'm leaning. Wouldn't only date be the best? Now, that's a great question. So that would be the case if they were actually at 0. If you see, it starts at 8, ends at 5. And this is in UTC, so I actually want to time zone these things as well. So yes, but no. But that does, yeah, right? I like... No worries. Hey, this is why we do things. It's actually all It's a lot of zeros here, so this is hard to read. But I think you're right. Like, we need to be careful about which format we pick. 0, 8, same number. Same number. Well, I think this number format is out, is kind of where my brain's going. I'm liking, in some ways, I like this RFC number a little bit, but I actually think what we're going to do is we're going to format our own here. And the reason we're going to change the format is short's closest to what I want, but it's lacking information. And that's the problem. If it wasn't for that, I'd agree with you. So let's see. If the formatter is... If there's a format... Find it from the format. Oh, man. So here's the reason I don't like short. Doesn't have a year. Well, A, I'm an American and this is European. So that's a me problem. That's not an international problem. I like how the hour and minutes are shorthand, but we're missing the year. I actually really like this RFC 822. It's closer to what I want. Still not right though. Reason it's still not right, I don't need the seconds and I don't love the time zone. That's a great question. Is the year really needed? Well, if you look at how I've done it, I got these by year. So I've got 10 years worth of content here. I kind of do need the years in this case. Because, you know, sometimes it'll be contextualized by saying, hey, this is the event in this year, but sometimes it won't. So you've got a good point. You do. Sometimes you gotta think a little bit more, unfortunately. And I think in our case we got close, but aren't quite there yet. So let's see if there's another function method in here that we can that allows us to format the way we want. Let's see. What can we do here? What can we do? What can we do? Time to make your own time format. Yeah, I think that's where we're about to go. I was hoping not to do it though. I didn't want to do it, but I think we are, unless there's like a Rails date time format method. I'm just curious if there's like I was looking for this function. Here it is. This is the actual function I was looking for. Looks like it's not. It's interesting. It wasn't on this page, except as a create your own. But this is the function I was ultimately hoping to use, because this lets me kind of inline it. But to your point, and this is a good point, I should go ahead and just make my own daytime formats. So yeah, let's do it. So let's go ahead and make a new initializer called time formats. I thought that was... I've got Microsoft on the mind apparently. Let's see. Is there something called an initializer here, or do I just need to go make my own? Oh, I thought you could do it for the command line. I guess not. Okay. By the way, I don't know if you know the site, but there's a site called devdocs.io which provides documentation for a lot of... Oh, there used to be a little app. It's called Dash App. This one. Is this it? No, what was it? It's like yeah, it was this app. It basically takes what DevDocs does and puts it into a little like doc, so you pull up any documentation for any language. It's pretty handy. I used to use this all the time. I haven't used it in years though, because I think they moved to a paid model and I also didn't need it. But yeah, there's a lot of great resources. But I also know what I'm looking for sometimes when I'm online looking for stuff, and I also know how to use my terminal a little bit. So I personally, that's my method for doing things, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily the only way to do things. There's multiple ways. All right, so let us borrow. Let us pray. No, and when I said that, that wasn't this. I was saying this. Yeah, we're gonna do some time format for a minute. So let's see what we can do here. I think what I want to do is I want to go to the shrift time, because this is going to give me all the little, here's all the documentation I really want. So what I think I want, I want a few things here. I think let's start with the fact that this can just be, you know, it's a string. And what do we want to call this? How about we come up with our, well, no, let's, full, it's not even abbreviated. So what we're going to go for, just to clarify, is, so if I pull this date as an example, right? Just to give us kind of what we're striving for. So if this is our date, what I want this to be is, and let's just assume this was a Thursday. I want this to say Thursday, October 24, 2029, 8, and that could just be 8. It doesn't need to show, but it does need to translate. Instead of 8, it needs to be whatever the time zone is. Yeah, Copilot's totally on. I'm not going to deny it. We're not going to pretend like Copilot's not a friend. But what would we call this format, I think, is our question. Why is America weird and do the month for? I can't tell you why, Arnie. We're strange people. We really are. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yeah, we have it. Nah, this is just what Americans do. I almost want this to be localized too. So it's like I want this to be like, if this is an American looking at the site, I want this. But if a Brit or somebody overseas is looking at it, I really want it to be this. Or whatever somebody overseas would do. So when they have their own units, they can have their own time formats. Have their own units. Are you talking about us Americans, or? I'm not fully following, but that's fair. So no. Fair enough. Well, what do we want to call this? This is like an abbreviated version of this format. So I guess that's what we're going to call it. We're going to call it abbreviated. How do you spell the word abbreviated? Abbreviated. It's ABBREV. This is the format we're going to call it. RFC 822. That's what we're going to call it. Oh, dude, I think we are so wrong in using feet. I will say, like this is just wrong, because this is actually, like, throwing it out there. How many inches do you think this is? This is 5 by 12, so it's 60 plus 10 inches, or 70 inches. Like, it's not logical. It's based, it's using a 12, but it gets worse. Like, I don't like the imperial system when it comes to distance, because, like, so you want to go from an inch to a foot, and then a foot to a yard, and then a yard to a mile, right? Well, an inch to a foot is 12. Oh, yeah, it just gave it to me. Thank you, Copilot. Foot to a yard is 3, and a yard to a mile is 1,760. Like, why? Like, centimeter to meter to kilometer, like, that's easy. Just add zeros. I like this. Like, 100% metric system all the way. It's just like, it's much easier to do this stuff. Kilograms, grams, pounds, like, yeah, I agree on all that. The only one, and this was an interesting debate on I mean, all the other streamers have talked about it, but it's, you know, Fahrenheit versus Celsius versus Kelvin, right? First, first off, let's not even talk about Kelvin. It's not worth talking about. It's only if you're talking about like super sub-zero temperatures where Kelvin becomes even relevant. But like, I saw some interesting arguments for like Fahrenheit. Kelvin's important in certain situations, but like Fahrenheit, right? Think about it this way. Here's my problem with Fahrenheit. All right, so fair. If I can even okay. So Fahrenheit, right? Freezing, right, is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Boiling is 212 degrees Fahrenheit, right? These are crazy numbers, okay? You're dead at 0 degrees. Hot / unbearable is at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Like, what's nice about Fahrenheit is it gives you like these big ranges of numbers. But like Celsius, right? Dead is -18. Freezing is 0. Hot is 38. Boiling is 100. Like, my real problem is most people live here in Celsius, and this is like 17 to 22 degrees Celsius on average. So like, y'all go from very hot to like not hot, and it's like, yeah, it's a hot day, it's 17 degrees, and it's like, oh, it's a cold day, it's 14. It's like, that was only a 3-degree difference. This is my only problem with Celsius, but it's more accurate because I like that it's around the boiling points of water, or the boiling and evaporation points of water. Like, this is very easy. 0, 100. Like, these numbers make sense to me. With Celsius, we just use decimals. Somewhere it can go up. Yeah, no, exactly. Like, your Celsius, like, I don't like that. The thing I like about Fahrenheit is that it's very clear when it's hot, cold, because it's like a jump in 10, 20 degrees. Celsius, it's like, oh yeah, it changed by, 1 or 2 degrees Celsius, and all of a sudden, like, it went from like mildly pleasant to really hot. But this is ridiculous. I mean, I'm saying this is ridiculous, but like, this is much easier when doing scientific things like cooking, right? Like, my grill's 450 degrees Celsius or 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Like, how hot is that actually? And 450 F to C is 232 degrees. Like, just throwing it out there. Like, it's only double the boiling point. I don't know. Fahrenheit and Celsius are weird. I agree. They're all weird. They're all wrong for their own reasons. They're all wrong. There's not a right one in the bunch. I said it. They're all wrong. But I like that they're fun like that. All right. Where is the day of the week? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings with that. They're just all wrong. At least when it comes to temperature. I'm just going to agree with you. Metric system is so much better than the imperial system, but convince an American of that, good luck. Okay, where are the days of the week? Days of the week. I want this one. Here we go. So, %A, this is going to give us our Thursday. Then I want the 3-day month is... Actually, let's see if Copilot can just do this for us. Convert to Rails string format. Let's see if Copilot can do it for us. I don't want to have to figure it all out. Here we go. All right. Oh, no, I wanted that. I almost got rid of everything. Okay, so %A, %B. %B is the abbreviated name. %D is... Where's %D? We're looking for it. %D, day of the month, no 0. Oh, 0 pad, but we don't want the 0 pad, so it's minus D. So we want this, put a comma. Now we have our year, which is percent %y with the century, so 4 digits. And then we're saying hour, minute, second. We don't want seconds. We just need hour and minute. Then we need AM or PM. Where's AM versus PM? Or we could go military time. What do you think, Arnie? Should we go military time? I like military time. There's nothing wrong with military time. What do you think? AM or PM or military time? All right. I'll take a bias. So we'll do the capital H for 24-hour time, which is what it gave us already. So let's try it. That's what Europe uses, except the UK. Of course, that's what Europe uses, except for the UK. Of course, the UK doesn't follow the rest of convention because it's the UK. They have to make everything so difficult. Brexit and all. Right? Hey, look at that. That looks pretty good if you ask me. What do you think? I like it. I know you might want to actually move the 2029 to the left here, but this is pretty good based off of what I wanted. See, that hurts my brain. Don't tell me that. I don't want that hurts my brain. I'm sorry. I hope you don't live there and I'm just like making fun of your country to your face. Like, I'd feel really bad if that was what's happening right here, because that would just be rude. Month belongs after the day. You know? You're German. Okay. I feel less bad. I hear you on moving the date, moving these two around. I hear you. I'm not going to do it though. I'm just not. Cuz I'm focusing on US users first. I'll expand this later, and that's where localization's really going to come into play. Because like we're gonna want to make this a localized format. Now, let's talk about what's wrong about this for a second. This is 8 UTC, but this user wants to look at everything as though it's EST. This is an 8 EST, which is where this event is taking place. We got a time zone issue. We need to fix the time zone, and we just need to say apparently in time zone event time zone. I think that should do it. Hey, I did it. You think it's weird having the time at the end, but I don't know where you could move it. It is weird, and it's also going to be one of those things where this is interesting on a per event basis. So what I mean by that is events have different starts and end. Like, okay, let's go talk about this for a minute. We started talking about this the other day, but like there's a few categories of events that we're kind of dealing with. First one is going to be, here, I'm going to actually type it out because it'll be faster. So like case one is we have multi-day conferences. The second idea is we're going to have single day conferences or events. And the third, event series. This last one's going to be the messy one. So hear me out. So case one, right? We're going to just kind of actually give me a picture of a calendar. Good enough. Copy image. All right. So here's our calendar, right? Let's talk about each case real fast. All right. So this one's going to be red. We'll make Hopefully you're not red, green, colorblind. We'll make that one green and we'll make this one blue just for the sake of what's happening here. All right. So our first case is the multi-day conference, right? A multi-day conference would be something that goes like these 2 days, starts in the morning, ends in the evening. That's it, right? So that's case one. Case two is the single day conference or event. So like on this day, it'll go from like this point in the day to this point in the day. And now you've got kind of those two types of events. Pretty easy. So like for, single day events, you don't really want to see both. You don't really care about the start and end date because they're both the same. You also don't care about the start and end time. Well, you care more about your start and end time because that's a much narrower window. Multi-day conference, similarly speaking, you've got, 2 days here, right? And you care that it goes over the 2 days. You probably don't care about the start and end as aggressively, right? Because people will show when they show, people will leave when they leave. So like these two types of events like are simple in that way. This third type, this event series, this is where it gets more complicated. So let me explain this use case. This use case is going to be something like an event happens on different days and times throughout a period of time. So think like a league, like this is an esports platform in some ways, or at least it's supposed to support some of that. So like think like a schedule like I don't even know what it is anymore. ESEA, Face It, like they have like a 12-week league. So it'll start each week and end on each week. And within it, it'll be like you can play on any of these days and this time. You can play on this week and any of these days and this time. And you play on any of these days and these times. And so like they have different start and end dates for specific aspects of the event. But really the event starts here and ends here. So this is kind of the third case. I'm intentionally kind of not paying attention to them for now, though, because it's much more complicated. And that's why I'm like, which format do I want to show? Like, ultimately speaking, if I show all the information, I'm supporting all three cases. And that's the complexity here. And this might be one of those like, hey, I want to view, like, this organization is a blank organization, like a conference organization, a single day events organization, or event series organization. And all of a sudden, it would just super customize the views. And like maybe that's what we need to do is like we need to create a way for the user to customize this table long term and make it so they can choose what information they see. So like they want to see the start and end dates, but they don't care about the times. They want to see the start date, the start time, the end date, the end time, or give them all the flexibility to get whatever slice of information they want and the format in which they want that information, because we can give it to them, because all of this could be customizable over time. That's actually kind of cool. That's like an interesting problem. But I'm trying to give like a generic, like, hey, let's just get this from looking like this to looking something marginally better for now. And that's kind of my argument across the board. So we're going to go ahead and just do that for now. Boop. And boom. So now all of our times and dates are correct. And we can actually see, like, if I were actually running this event, I would have set it up incorrectly, because like nobody wants to go from 4 p.m. to 1 a.m. Oof, I set that real bad. I messed that up real bad. Unless this is 1 p.m. I thought I did this in military time. Is this not military time? Because that seems... Well, let's see what it was real. Or let's see what it is raw. So. Ben Rail C. Let's go get our last event. If we look, I set them to end at... It ends at 5 a.m. That's not 5 p.m. That's 5 a.m. So this is indeed correct. And this would be like a nice indicator for somebody being like, oh, I really misconfigured the crap out of this. And then they can go fix it. Like, I want this to not be those dates and times. And I would actually then have to come in here and make all of the same fixes, right? Like I want this to be PM, but I also want all this to show up in a different format. So, if I go fix that all of a sudden and I come look and it's like, hey, that looks significantly better all of a sudden. Why can the event end before it started? Why can the event can't end before it started? Where do you see the event ending before it started? It's 2 dates, 24th, 26th. That's why the times didn't matter so much. This is a multi-day event. Is that where I was like, I set that validation up. I promise you that if you go look at my model, you could see that I said very explicitly that the start at has to be uh or that the end at has to be after the start at. That's what I did. So I do have a rule for that. It is there. So very good question. Very, very good question. Okay, so let's start making this table look better because that's bad UI design. Yes, not user friendly. Yeah, no, that's my problem right now. I need to fix. I mean, and it's totally right. I need to fix how this is displaying because this is abhorrent. Like how it's like now all of a sudden, oh, we can actually read what's going on and see things. And I'm gonna re-enable the borders for a second. Not because I actually want the borders, but just so we can kind of see where the lines are. And we can kind of see like, okay, the lines aren't clear. Some of the stuff's not acting the way we want. We have to just make some decisions. Like for instance, I really want my TH and TDs by default to be text align left. Right? All of a sudden, I think that looks much better if I'm being completely frank about it. Our dates and times here probably need some spacing. So maybe what we can do here is we can say for our TRs here, why don't we add padding of at least, half a rim vertically. Assuming that actually worked. Apparently that's not how you do that anymore. Is it margin? Huh. Apparently you don't do this here anymore. Fascinating. Today I learned. We'll just fix it here. It's not the end of the world. Now we've got spacing. We can read things a little better. Let's see. What else do we want to do? Right? Why don't we make the first row? I mean, this is a good question. Should we have all the borders enabled? Should we just turn them on? Just say, you know what? It's a table. Make them borders show. I think for scanning purposes, we should do this. I really do. I'm going to make that decision. And then I think the next thing we could do is for now make the background of every other line. That's exactly what I was about to do. Except we can go even darker than that. Why don't we make it... Let's try that one. And we can make... I mean, hey. First child. And let's make this one maybe like some bluish color, like light blue maybe. Oh, except it's... What? Oh, it's a T-head first child. Or we could just say all the TRs in the T-head are now this bluish color. Doesn't that look much nicer all of a sudden? You can read all the lines. You can scan it a lot easier. We could probably make this responsive. But now all of a sudden, like, this table's a lot better. Yeah, right? Much more readable. I'm in full agreement. The last thing we're going to do is we're just going to grab the show button. And we're going to stick that. into our action row here, and then we're just going to delete everything else. And now all of a sudden, boom, we got this working table. Everything's much cleaner, and we can go fix our UI in a bunch of other places. But like now we're giving our users something they can work with. Now we're still missing some stuff, and the things we're missing aren't available yet, so to speak, just because we haven't built the functionality. But it's almost like maybe make the row clickable and then you can remove the button. So I hate clickable rows. I'm going to be honest. I hate clickable rows. I've never found the UX to be correct. But I agree with what you're saying. I've just never found the UX to be right. So I'm going to do this for now because because the other thing that I've seen people do in the past is they'll like put the delete buttons. They'll put extra actions over here, right? Like maybe in the future, somebody realizes, oh crap, like this event's been running. I need to close registration, right? Well, maybe we want to give them an action to like quickly close registration over here. And it's just like a quick button. If the whole row is clickable, it makes this user experience absolutely terrible. Now, people might expect these names, on the other hand, those should maybe be clickable. And I think that's generally speaking, the more accepted best practice. And so I'm going to accept that as a replacement option, at least for now. We'll think about better options in the future, though. Boom. What you also could do is make a pop-up where you can select the action you want to take. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be, and we have this. We could just easily pull our drop-down menu in. So like, here, let's do it. Why not? Render, I think it's partial. Yeah. We're gonna grab our friend, the partial, and we'll just stick it here real quick for a second. And what are we going to do? So like this is going to be, the nav title here is going to be actions. The menu name is going to be, we'll just call it actions drop down for now. Now this needs a better name. This would need to be action drop down for event ID or event name even. And then this last thing could be our options submenu. And all we could have here is just like, man, this thing kind of figured it out on the first go. So we could do show, and then this will just be the event path event. And then we can, let's see how well that worked. Assuming I didn't mess it up. I messed something up. What did I mess up? Something didn't work the way I wanted it to. It's supposed to be right here. Oh, you know what it might be? It might be, don't ever do this at home for real. But somebody is, position relative maybe? I'm missing something. I'd have to go figure out what's wrong with the CSS, but in theory, this is the same dropdown as this. So if this is working, this would work all of a sudden. My dropdown's hidden because I probably did something incorrect with Z indexes and or styles. So yeah, you're right. I could totally do exactly that. I'm not going to for now though. Like I kind of said, I just want the show action for now, and maybe we'll add more later. But as far as I'm concerned, that's an easy fix now. That's not a hard fix, right? So we have kind of our base information. Now let's talk about like the next thing that somebody who would be running a conference actually cares about, which is it's the registration stats, right? So sometimes these events have a number of tickets they could sell, right? And so in this case, it would be, and we don't have this yet, but it would be something like I'm making the UI look nice using some crappy logic that you should never actually use. Is it not math.random in Ruby? I thought it was. Is it just random? Math.rand? Ruby math random? What is this? It is rand. Oh, okay. I just did this wrong. I've been in JavaScript land too much that I can't actually remember how to do things. This is my fault. I blame me. Actually, wait. Was there more advice on this? There was more advice on this. Check this out. This is why I love Ruby. I can do this. This is going to give me a random number between 0 and the number I actually want. What? You're supposed to be able to do that. Rails, math random? How to get a random number in Ruby? Oh, it's random. Random.rand. Or not. Okay, why did this not like... It's event.capacity here. Oh! Welcome to nil and what not to do if nil exists. So what we really need here is we need... So this is breaking because I just have some random number in here. All right, this will work now. So as you can see, like this would show the registration numbers in theory. I mean, it's gonna be random every time because of how I set it. But it's basically like if this event had a maximum number of people, you want to see how many of your tickets you sold. And this would be like a progress bar, ideally. Because that's how you want to show it. It's like, hey, how many of the tickets that you wanted to sell did you sell? And then there's actually two pieces of logic here. There's the number of tickets you need to sell to break even. And then there's the number of tickets you want to sell to max out. Because those are two different numbers. Like, let's say you have an event that can hold 100 people. You break even at 80. You want to know when you hit 80 people so you break even. So that's always a fun, interesting problem with these platforms is they need information like that. So that's a fun little piece of info, and like getting this to display properly, like I'd pass this into a very, very different rendering mechanism, and we could probably do that real quick right now, right? So let's say, so let's do it this way. So if the event has a capacity, right? Then we want to do it kind of this way, which again, we would change that into our other friend, the you're gonna go to sleep. Oh yeah, it's super late there. Hey, I hope you have a wonderful night. Thanks for coming to hang out. I appreciate you coming and chilling with me. So we're gonna go just like throw this in for a second. So now, assuming I didn't like totally make my UI all janky. So in the case of like an event that actually has a capacity, it'll show, but in case where it doesn't have a capacity, we can show this. And then in the future, what we could do is we could do that bar like I just said. And now this just kind of shows you like, hey, what's your plus minus on sales? Speaking of, that's the other thing you want to know. You want to know, like, it's not really event capacity or registration stats. It's really like capacity. It's really capacity info. That's really what you're kind of going for. And then there's another number, which is, again, this is one of those configurable fields, but you want your revenue number. You want to know how much money you've made, right? And so you can just put that kind of here. And this would be calculated very differently, and we just don't have the capacity to do it for right now. So this is just going to be, for now, just some math.random, because we haven't figured this out. But we can format it as money. So Rails money format, which we remember there was a number to currency. That's right. And we could do number to currency. Well, we'll just do number to currency for now. We'll be lazy about it. Number to currency. We'll have to make this more fancy later, because again, we have this information. We just don't have it right now. Oh, it's because this isn't a method, it's a function. Boom, boom, boom. And we'll just make this math.random, and we'll just have this one go to like 10,000. Here's a nice, fun little Ruby thing too. You can put an underscore like that and it'll render fine. Unless I'm making that up and that's not a Ruby thing. Am I missing a dot? Apparently I messed something up here. I think I had an extra parenthesis. There we go. Now we can do some additional like funness here. Like we don't want we don't actually want the format it just gave us. We kind of want the no sense format of this. So it's really how do we do it? How do we do it? Precision 0. That's what we're missing. Precision is 0. Now all of a sudden, we kind of know how much money we're making. This is helpful because now we got our revenue numbers, we got our capacity, and these are like, now we're starting to get into like some of the logistics planning of like how an event would actually want to be operating and actually doing their function. So like they want to know, you know, how many tickets they need to sell for capacity. They also need to know how to do revenue. So let's go back to our kind of like business logic for a minute, because each of these has different permutations as well. But in this case, there's kind of two cases here. So there's like, and then really case 1 and 2 are the same. So like multi-day conferences usually sell like multiple types of tickets, right? So like they'll do, you know, so like multi-day, here we said this should be red. So like they'll sell the early bird at, you know, 80% of their cost. They'll sell the, early bird at 80% of their cost. They'll sell their standard ticket at 100% of what they want to make. And they'll do their late ticket at like 110, 120, you know, whatever the additional overhead for them is on like recouping some costs of like doing certain things. So like you've got these 3 different ticket types that a multi-day might make. But then you also might have like, you know, VIP, standard. You might also have like workshop packages. Like this is all the different like pricing model information. So like you can't just calculate exactly what this number is going to be, right? Because, or you can get your total revenue number, right? You could set a revenue number, but that's kind of hard. And then similar with the capacity, like that's something you just need to be aware of. Like you can only sell so many tickets when you have a capacity, right? So kind of coming back to this again, it's like, okay, I only have room for 80 people. Like as soon as I have 75 people, I probably need to know so I can go, you know, see about upgrading the size, right? Because some venues, let's think logistically for a second, like some venues will give you an extra room per 1,000 attendees that you get registration for. It's kind of like room blocks in a hotel. They don't give you the next block until you fill your current block. And so like there's a lot of things you kind of have to deal with here. And so you kind of have, those are two key metrics that event coordinators kind of care about. They want to know like what's their revenue numbers and what's their capacity information. And they want to know like how many new pieces of information they're getting daily. We don't have a way to track either of these numbers currently. We just know like what the for the capacity info, we know what the top number is, and the revenue, we know what that is. Now, something we are going to want to do for our users eventually is we're going to create a way to say, hey, based off of your ticket sale information, like the types of tickets you have, let's just say on average, you're just going to get standard and standard tickets. And let's say 20% of your people are going to get workshops. We'd have to figure this out over time to refine this number. But based off of your ticket price numbers at this information and your capacity, how much capacity you need to break even, or how much, you also have to know how much the person has put down for the conference, and they're less likely to put that into the system. So that's something else we'd have to figure out. Like, what is the average cost per attendee for a conference? Take that number and kind of plug it into the system to kind of help inform that. Some machine learning here, maybe some just general like statistics and analysis that we just don't have access to. But like that would be a cool, not day one feature, but a day two feature is what I would call that. So we definitely need to like think about all these things. Like these are definitely like, oh my God, we would absolutely love to support this. But I don't think we're close enough to being able to like just develop this today because I don't think we have enough of the platform fleshed out. So I think we need to kind of go back and just like continue to improve the dashboards and what we have with what we know. So we've kind of gone through. We're like, okay, well, we can add, create, show events. We can create a new event. You know, if we go into the event and we want to edit it, you know, let's do this. And the reason we want, here's another business logic thing. Like the reason we're going show is you might have somebody who's a read-only member of this organization. You want the actions to always align with your lowest common denominator. Like they might be able to go see the event, but they might be like a session moderator, right? And they should only see the session information. So we might have to block them at this point. So this is just something we need to be aware of. And that's why some of the behaviors are the way they are. But we've got some cool stuff. So let's go. Let's kind of go back to the drawing board for a minute, kind of just see where we are for a minute. So we've done all this stuff and like this is giving us some good vibes, but I think there's more we should do. I think the things we probably should consider doing real quick is some of this color stuff. Because I kind of want to do these three things. I think this is the three things that we're going to try and accomplish with the time we have left today. Because I think these are all, I'm just going to move things around because it's stuff and there's always going to be some of this stuff. But I think what we really want is we want to do some CSS resets and polyfills and CSS variables because there's stuff we care about. Now, first off, you might be like, polyfill, isn't that like a bad thing right now? And it's like, yeah, no, polyfill, there's a polyfill issue right now. It's, oh God, what is it? Polyfill library. Oh God, it was, here it is, polyfill. So this is like, so polyfill is a popular JavaScript project and it's got a pretty bad security risk in it right now. So we got to be careful with using it. So we're not going to use polyfill out of the box. And actually, let's just make sure we understand that I'm reading this right, because this happened 2 days ago. Project has been taken over by a foreign actor identified as a Chinese originated company. And they embedded malicious code and JavaScript assets fetched from their CDN source at CDN polyfill.io. Sensor claims more than 100,000 websites were impacted due to this polyfill attack, including publicly traded companies such as Intuit and others. Oof, poor Intuit. This allowed automatic injection of JavaScript polyfill libraries into websites based on their user agent or other properties. Andrew statement trace back to February when they warned of having no part in the official CDN polyfill website. There's no specific polyfill library or npm that we know of that is part of this specific malicious or actor campaign to inject malicious code. That said, libraries across different software management, such as content management systems like Magento. Woo! Yeah, this is pretty bad. So this is just a CDN, and we just don't want to use that CDN for sure, which is in the library right now. Okay. Well, we do want some polyfills and some resets, so let's like see what a good reset file would look like. Let's look at a couple people's recommendations. The goal of a reset style sheet is reduce browser inconsistencies and things like default line heights, margins, font size. Yeah, we like all that. This is a pretty straightforward one. I don't hate it. If you want to use, then feel free. It's all explicitly in the public domain. Hey, I like that. A modern CSS reset. The CSS reset by John W. Como. Whenever I start a new project, the first order of business is to sand down some of the rough edges in the CSS language. Eric Myers. Is that this one? Is this Eric Meyer? Yep, that's Eric Myers. It's a solid chunk of CS, but it's a bit long in the tooth at this point. It hasn't been updated in more than a decade, and a lot has changed since then. Oof. Well, that's good. Like, we are happy not to use the latest. Recently, he's been doing his own CSS. It includes all the little tricks I've discovered to improve both the user experience and the CSS authoring. Like other CSS resets, it's unopinionated when it comes to design, cosmetics. Use this reset for no matter the aesthetic you're going for. In this tutorial, we'll go on a tour of this CSS reset. So it's relatively short. There's a lot of stuff packed in this small style sheet. Now we could read this, or I could just take my assumption and assume that I know what most of this is going to end up doing. So let's just go ahead and grab these, right? Because I am all about doing the stuff. So the way we've kind of written our style sheets just real quick is application is going to be the first thing that's loaded, and then everything else is going to get required after the tree. So we want to make sure that our resets look like this. Now, good news is we already started writing some of our resets that actually look pretty similar to what Josh here is recommending. So the first one was just the before and after. Very happy with that. The next one is removing the default margin on everything. Add accessible line height, improve text rendering. I like both of these rules. So this one is just setting all of the standard line height to be 1.5 times whatever its the set font is. And I think that's just a generically good rule. And then for this font smoothing here, this is just an anti-alias. It's specific to WebKit, but it tries to fix some fonts. I'm good with that. This is a reasonable set of resets for images. And we're also going to just kind of note this as a comment, like this reset.css by, and we're gonna give Josh here some credit because, you know, we give credit where credit is due. We're not going to just steal somebody's code. Remove built-in form typography styles. I'm okay with that as well. Avoid text overflows. Pretty happy with that reset. Create a root stacking context. This is the only one I don't understand. Start our CSS. So let's go look at this last rule because I'm not sure about number 8 here. So you did startle me. You totally startled me. No thanks for now, but you totally startled me. Wow. That was cool though. All right, so root stacking context. This last one is optional. It's generally only needed if you use a JS framework like React. As we saw in What the Heck Z-Index, the isolation property allows us to create a new stacking context without needing to set a z-index. This is beneficial since it allows us to guarantee that certain high priority items, modals, dropdowns, tooltips will always show up above the other elements in our application. No weird stacking context bugs, no z-index arms race. You tweak the selector to match your framework. We want to select the top level elements that your application is rendered within. For example, create React app uses div root ID, so the correct behavior selector is root. So we don't actually need this because we're not using React or anything, but that would have been a decent thing how we want. And so this is the lovely little reset. He says we can copy and paste it. I'm crediting him because I want to be a good person and credit him. And so like, let's just go do that. And all of a sudden, oh, look at that. Like that feels like what I was hoping this would have looked like the first time I did everything. Like it's a little tighter, things are a little cleaner, the line height's a lot easier to read. The font looks a little cleaner. Like, oof, such good. Such nice. I like. So this is our little reset and we're going to be happy with that. We killed all the styles that were needed by this, so that's gone. So we got a lot of lovely little things going on already. The next thing I want to do is I want to go fix. Let's see if we can do like a Rails polyfill. Let's see. Programmatically add JavaScript polyfills with Rails. Including polyfills in the application.js file forces users to have the most up-to-date browsers to download, parse, and execute JavaScript they do not need. Programmatically fetching polyfills allows the application.js to be as small as possible, reducing parse and execution times of JavaScript. In this example, we're going to set up polyfills for promise and window fetch. We'll start by adding polyfill from npm. So this is starting to get into some other stuff, and it's also that polyfills project I think was kind of determined not to be okay. Let's see. There's something that's like CSS Modernizer. Is this what I'm thinking of? It's a collection of super fast tests or detects, as we like to call them, which run as your web page load. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Is it CSS autoprefixer? Maybe is what I'm thinking of. It is autoprefixer is exactly what I was looking for. So autoprefixer, we're gonna look for one for Rails here. So autoprefixer is, so I guess this is important to talk about Ruby here. We are using Ruby on Rails, and we're using Ruby on Rails' asset pipeline. Meaning, if we come look in our assets here, you're going to notice there's no, like if we look in our project, there's no package.json. There's no npm. And that's because everything's kind of managed by this asset configuration here. And you can see that it's compiling kind of our style sheets and our JavaScripts and all that. The reason this is kind of a thing, and we can change this eventually, but the reason this is behaving the way it's behaving is Rails has something called its asset pipeline. And its asset pipeline is what's effectively, if we look at this file again, kind of pulling through all of this and figuring out what CSS and JavaScript to include when we load our project. And so what we really want to do is, and we can delete all of this now because we're not really using it, but we are using these directives and we want to make sure these directives are used correctly. But this is now like pulling, this is what's building our CSS. And so Rails is handling building our CSS. And because of that, we don't want to use the JavaScript autoprefixer because now all of a sudden we'd have to move outside of the Rails ecosystem. Now, the question is Rails asset pipeline autoprefixer. And the question is, does Rails do this by default? Auto prefix. So as you can see, you have the asset pipeline. Let's see. Manifest, controller, asset organization, code linking, precompiling assets, local precompilation, customizing the pipeline, CSS compression. Looks like we don't have a whole lot, and so that's just something we need to look into. But just thinking out loud for a moment, I think we're just going to end up using this auto prefixer package, but it's updated 4 months ago. It is failing. Question is, why is it failing? It's failing because of linters and tests. We can not be super thrilled about that, but let's see how this works. So write your CSS, SAS, whatever, rules without a vendor prefixes, and autofixer will apply prefixes for you. For example, in like the SAS example, it'll take WebKit, Moz, MS, and find all of those and kind of fix it for you. So yeah, this is totally what we want. So let's go ahead and in our gem file, we'll add auto prefixer. We'll put it right next to all of this stuff about JS, and this will be like auto prefix style CSS with doesn't support these auto prefixer browsers and package custom browser usage statistics. All right, so what are we gonna do here? Are we actually gonna install this? That's the question of the day. I don't know if we're actually gonna install it. Because this is saying, hey, the best way to use it is with Webpack or Gulp. Well, we're not using Webpack or Gulp. It doesn't support these auto prefixer features. Browsers and package JSON, custom browsers, which we're not using. Windows users should install Node. Auto prefixer Rails doesn't work without JS scripts in Windows. Auto prefixer Rails uses exec.js that will use the best available JavaScript runtime. Currently, this gem is tested to work with Node.js version 10 and up with Mini Racer, but will not work with the Ruby Racer. Let's go look at the issues. They haven't closed anything in a few years. I'm a little hesitant to use this. Auto prefixer was released with an EMV option fix. We deprecated auto prefixer Rails. Use Node's auto prefixer with CSS instead. We will release security updated after 10x release. Aha. So how do people recommend adding auto prefixer to Rails? Add auto prefixer to Rails. How to get PSO working with Rails 6? Close enough. You run rake auto prefixer info to test your auto prefixer already installed. Also, this is mentioned. Deprecate. No. Let's see if they say anything about not using this library. Nope, they don't say anything. So this is the auto prefixer library, which is great. Post CSS plugin to parse CSS and vendors. CSS roles using values can I use? Is recommend Google. Yep, that's what we want. Write your CSS. Auto prefixer will use the data based on your browser. Usage. Other build tools. Ruby on Rails. You can use the post CSS CLI to run auto prefixer from the CLI. Other build tools, and then they recommend this auto prefixer Rails. See, this has me nervous. Like, there was a commit 4 months ago. There haven't been issues in a few months. Looks like it's kind of maintained. Okay, we're gonna try it. I'm nervous about adding something like this. Add auto prefixer for CSS. We're gonna try it. Hopefully it works the way they say it does and not the way like, hopefully the internet's a little wrong here, but it would be nice to have an auto prefixer that works. So this probably won't work, right? Oh no, that worked. So when we go write our CSS now, this will be the moment of truth. Like we can go put, let's go put something that we know needs to get auto prefixed, right? Like let's do, let's do this style right here that they gave us, although we'll do it a little better than what they gave us. So it'll be this. So if we go refresh our, actually run our site. So if we go load it up and we go look at our CSS file. So if we go here, assets, here's our, one of these is our CSS file. Yeah, check it out. Look at it. It did the polyfills we wanted. So this is good. And we can go look and see if there were any other like polyfills that we wrote that we actually needed that this just handled for us. And it looks like we didn't have a lot of necessary polyfills yet because we're not doing anything super duper fancy. Probably yet is the right word, but you know, it's handling most of the stuff. I mean, this is the good news. Most of our stuff doesn't seem to need prefixes. I mean, let's just keep reading for a second, see if we find anything. Everything looks fine, and this was the only one that actually polyfilled. So, I guess we're fine. We'll just have to keep an eye on that, but we have a working polyfill, so now we don't have to worry about that. So auto prefixer's working. We're not going to do polyfills for now, just because we're not using enough JavaScript to justify it. So we can call that done. All right, refactor colors and values. Okay, this is the one that I actually kind of want to do today. So one of the things that we started doing, and we started doing pretty bad, is I started just kind of willy-nilly naming colors and some other attributes here, so to speak. And I'm okay with like, as long as everything's in size rem or one of these weighted values, I'm cool with it. Like having font weight defined, having all of that defined, like I'm good with these rules. But having arbitrary numbers like this for colors, this is where I found CSS gets out of whack kind of quickly. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else in here that I'm like, ooh, I really don't like that. And I'm just looking, it's mostly colors here that I'm kind of upset with myself over. Grid template, like this could be an interesting one, but it's not super important. I'm just seeing if there's any, like some of these calculations are a little awkward. Same with the transformations, but these are pretty specific. Same with the transition. Like this is very specific to this thing. If I wanted to change the global transition or make it a global transition, I might do it differently. Similarly, like these borders and things, like this is where we start getting into some kind of weird territory. But I think all I really want a variable right now are these colors, because I feel like colors where I've done bad. So what I want to do is CSS color variables. I always forget what the syntax is. But I think the answer is I can just set in the root, I can set a bunch of variables like this. And these will be what I'm going to call my colors. Now, I know people don't love Tailwind, but I really like their colors. Like they have a default color palette, and I actually really like their default color palette. Because I think it's a good color palette. I mean, they have the spectrum. If they did anything right, this is kind of what they did right. And so I want to get all of these variables. Now, I don't need all of them. So what I want to do, hey, here we go. So what I want to do is I want to kind of create our own color grid. And let's just see what color we want to base it off of. You know, I think I'm going to go with like, this is like a nice purple, I think. Reason I'm going purple as well is I know a special lady in my life who really likes purple, and some of these purples are really right up her alley. So yeah, I like this. So let's do, oh, I don't want the contrast grid, but like, can I get, well, maybe I can just get this for now. So if I wanted to just do, oh, I was hoping it would just give me what I wanted. Didn't give me what I want, but that's okay. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna create our own color palette here, and what we'll just say is this is just gonna be our purple, and then we're just gonna do things like purple 50. Now what we can do is, let's see if I can just fix this in a quick fail swoop. Right? So let's see. Did that kind of worked. Oop, too much. All right. So these, let's say these are my colors now, right? Let's just say this is my color palette. Let's go make everything kind of off these colors now. And maybe this will help us start doing our theming. So like our background color here, let's say we want this to be maybe purple 200, right? Var purple 200. If we go back to our app real quick, assuming I did it right, didn't do it right. No, I did do it right. I just put it in a bad place. Okay, so if we do it this way now, what we're finding is I don't know how to variable, and that's okay. I don't have to know how to variable, but I thought it would have been this variable here. I would have been able to just gone variable the name. So I should have been able to just say bar is purple 2. That's what I was hoping I could do. Didn't like that so much, and I don't know why. So I would have thought, yeah, I would have thought that would have worked. Let's see what's not happening the way I want it to. So this should have been the first one that had our friend the color purple, right? And if I go look, purple's not defined, which means that I did something wrong here. Okay. What did I do wrong there? That's the question. So in our root, a custom property prefix with 2 dashes begins with dash dash followed by the property name. So dash dash purple, whatever, followed by the property name my property, and a property value that can be any valid CSS value, like any property. This is written inside a rule set. The following example shows how to create a custom property main gallery and use name color value brown. This selector given to the rule set section element in the example above defines the scope in which the custom property can be used. For this reason, a common practice is to define custom properties to the root pseudo element so it can be used referenced globally. This doesn't always have to be the case. You may have a good reason for limiting your scope to custom properties. Custom property names are case sensitive. So my will be treated separate from my color using the at property rule. Okay, so let's see what happens if I just do a quick server reset. Is it possible my CSS is cached? Like there's a few things we need to just like confirm real quick. So Let's just do a quick temp clear, make sure that that's not something that needed to happen. So probably doing something wrong. And I'm guessing it might be something to do with the fact that I didn't put semicolons in any of these places. And that would be a good guess. So we're kind of happy about this because now what we see is we've got our root colors working. And so if I wanted to find multiple color palettes, I just have to change these names. And now I can do like global find replaces on colors. And this is just going to make our color palette a lot easier to deal with. So like here, I could say this is, let's say this one's purple 500, right? Now I might not love that. Like I might, here, let's go get our color contrast tool as an example. So if we look right here, so that's the foreground color, and the background color is this. We're gonna see we're failing our color contrast, as you can see. Now, if we go do the same thing and compare to, you know, this color, we're fine. So, but let's compare now this blue. So these are both kind of failing contrast now. So maybe the easy way to fix it is maybe set this to 4 and set this to 1. I don't know. Let's give it a shot. Let's see. Let's see what happens this time. So if we go grab our color contraster, let's go grab this different color. That's gonna work now. Now if we go try this one, and then let's go look at this black again. Now these are passing. So I just needed to change which colors I was using to quickly fix this. And that looks a lot better all of a sudden. I'm sure there's other color things we should be doing, but like this is a nice little quick reset for us. Now let's go play with some more colors for a minute. Anywhere we wrote background or background color, our color, we just need to go fix all those. So like for instance, like now we need to have a white, okay? I'm kind of just saying, you know what? We need white. That's just going to be FFF. So anywhere I wrote white, like here, this is in there, these can just be far white instead. And that's just in case I decide to choose an off-white color in the future. And now what I can do here for like this one, this can be our purple, and let's say it's purple 800. Now, we don't have a good example of what this is going to look like because I'm not on the page that had that element. So let's just go to this page real quick and see what's going on. So there's our purple. We made it nice and dark. I don't like how dark it is though. So let's try 500. That looks like a nice button. And then what we can do is when we highlight it, hover it, you know, let's try 700. That looks like a nice hover state, and we can see what's going on. Now, I don't know why this log out button all of a sudden is in the wrong place, so we're going to have to go look at that momentarily. But doesn't that look good now? Doesn't that feel right? And then we can start doing the same with like the secondary color now, right? So like we said, purple's our primary color. Now we need a secondary color. And we're going to have to find, you know, we've said that our base color is effectively, I don't even know what this translates to. There we go. So this is our primary color. So create color palette. And there's several tools. Let's see if there, I saw one for Tailwind not too long ago. I think it was this thing. Yeah. Oh, but this only created like, just kind of gave us 2 real fast, and I wanted more colors. Oh, I can get a secondary color for now. That's neat. I don't know what to make my secondary color, though. Somebody sent me something for this, I swear. Let's see if it's in my Omnivore real quick. I might have put it in somewhere, and I just CSS only accessible dropdown, CSS meta, inclusive components, mindset, 13-month calendar, understanding, criterion. Nope, it's not in there. That's my base color. So here's our base color. What are our other... I want like a color palette. All right, let's just do a color palette. Maybe Canva has a good one. Explore combinations, create a custom color palette. Here's my color. And it's saying green's my complementary. Don't want monochromatic. Analogous is okay. Tetradic, tetradic. Do I like this is the question. I don't know if I like that as my secondary colors. And if we export the palette, oh, it's kind of weird. That's not really what I wanted. So if I say, if I change this color, it's not really what I want either. Let's see, generate tailwind color palette from base color. Somebody sent this to me before too, and I'm not like... I really want to find this again because it would just be nice to like find the whole spectrum of colors. Like, this is close. I don't hate this, but I need like, I want secondary and tertiary colors. Huh. Well, why don't we just grab the, rather than making all this up, why don't we just grab the base tailwind colors? Yeah, can I get this as an export? Like, I just want to copy and paste it. Just want to copy and paste it. Is there a way to just get this original? I don't want to have to type it all up. This is my... I don't know exactly what I want. I just want to steal yours. Configure your own color. No. I just want to steal from you. Let me just steal from you. Make it easy to steal. Let's see if we can find it on GitHub. If we go to colors. Let's see if it's in here maybe. Nope, it's not there. Is there a config maybe? Do 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 do. So this is somewhere in here. Colors are defined. So let's figure out where those colors are defined. Because it's gotta be somewhere. For the color red. This is their color utility. Make this easier for me, please. Tailwind, CSS colors as CSS variables. I don't want that. don't want to install this just to go grab a thing, but I will if you make me. Here, let's see if we explore the code this way. Like maybe let's go look for the name purple, right? Or zinc even. Oh, here we go. Hey, this is what we were looking for. This is exactly what we were looking for. So we're going to just kind of cheat for a minute. We're going to just steal it all. And you can see they have some other variables they define for consistency. This is something we might revisit later. But for now, I'm not revisiting. So we're just going to say, here are our colors. And if we do that, we're going to first off find out that our colors should have worked. Oh, everything is prefixed as color. That's our problem. So anytime we do var now, it just needs to be color. I'll have to go fix it in all the places. Color. And we're okay with this for what it's worth. I want to just be honest about that. So like, that doesn't bother me so much. But now what we can do is we can actually use their color palette here because I actually kind of like their color palette. I can be like, okay, let's make our alternate button like zinc here. So let's, is that close? Yeah. So we'll say this is var color zinc 500. And for the hover effect, let's just do zinc 700. Consistency, right? So we come look at this now. Our button looks pretty much the same. And we're very happy about that. Now, we want to figure out why this button got all screwed up all of a sudden. I think it's because it got some type of crazy top margin. So I did a margin top to rim somewhere in our form. So this is in a form and we did this for a reason. We're going to have to go figure that out for a second. So if we go to our dashboard, go to our event, we go to new event, there's two rims in here for a reason and I don't know why. I don't know why I did it. Is it this one? I'll be honest. It's not doing much and it made our UI considerably worse. So we're going to get rid of that rule. I don't know why I had it. That's just a simple, we're going to get rid of it. It's going to make life better. But now we can see our colors are starting to look better. And we like when our colors are starting to look better because now we can like do more with it. Right? So if we come kind of to our drop down real quick, do we have any like, is there a color in here? So there's this border top, right? Oh, that's one we should set. So transparent is just that's a special name and we're going to leave that one alone. But for like this one needs to be color black. This one needs to be color white. This box shadow here, this is one that I have trouble kind of defining. So there is a box shadow here. And what I want to do, let's go ahead and just focus. Yeah, we can focus this one. So what we're going to see is, let me find the right element. So this UL right here, this has this drop shadow right here. And it's set to be the box shadow. So let's find box shadow for a second. So I always forget exactly where to change it. So let's see this as, this is really just like an opacity thing. So So this is like a special variable as well. So this could be our box shadow variable, right? I'm going to variabilize this one, and that's just because all box shadows should have the same background color. And I'm just kind of making that exactly well. Now, do I need all of these variables and colors? Probably not. I'm going to go ahead and make some quick chunking. Like, I'm not going to use any of those. Probably not going to use any of these violets or indigos. I will use blue. Probably am going to not use sky or cyan or teal or emerald, but I will use green. And I probably won't use lime. I will use yellow. Amber is as good as gone. Orange is good. Red is good. Probably won't use stone, but this neutral color and zinc and gray and slate are ones that I probably will use. So I'm going to keep those around for a minute. So these are kind of like, this is our colors. And then what we're going to add here as well, this is going to be color drop shadow. Drop box shadow. And this is just going to give us a consistent box shadow everywhere. And that way we don't have to like remember what the color was that we defined. So every time we need a box shadow, this should just be it. Now we can also just say, we just want box shadow, you know, to just be, this is our standard box shadow. In which case, what we do instead is we grab the entire box shadow here, say var box shadow. And inside of our application CSS where we put that, this can now just resolve to this variable. And the reason we're doing this is now we can universally define what we want our shadow to be. So like, let's say we decided this was just, let's just say this was too much, or let's say we wanted this to be rem instead of m, right? And let's say instead of 0.5, we wanted 0.2. All of a sudden we have a very different shadow. And this is just consistent, and I can force it in every place we use it. So I can add shadow all over the place. So like, let's say I wouldn't do this in reality, what I'm about to do, but let's just say like I wanted all of my inputs that weren't the select, like let's just say I wanted all of these to have a box shadow, and that box shadow could be that value, right? Well, all of a sudden, again, assuming I did this right, let's just reopen the tab because somebody's not happy. But see how they all have shadow now? The shadow is consistent. And so like, oh, I really need to tone that shadow down, or I need to tone it up. Like, that's an easy change at this point, but just globally changing it. But I don't like box shadow all that much. So we're just going to get rid of it on the main elements. And we're just going to kind of go back to like making sure all of our colors are well defined here. So like, this is our drop down. This is this color. So what we want this to be is, let's say we want this to be like var color gray 100. It's not a bad color, but let's try zinc 100. I feel like zinc 100 might look, how about slate 100? See, now that's, oh, and I've been looking at the wrong thing. Look at the background here. It's this one that's getting the color. Let's say we want slate. I like slate a little bit more than I like the other color I was using. That's a nice color there. And now what we could do is on the hover state here, what we could do is we could say this is also going to be slate. So there's another hover color somewhere. Probably this one right here. This could also be slate 200. And now all of a sudden, it's the same color in both places. I've got consistency in my UI. Now I could make this a little darker as well, just to say, hey, it's the same color, but like this is the thing you're actually focused on. You're in this menu, but you're focused on this element. I could also flip it around to say, hey, actually, I want that one to be the 2, and I want this one to be the 3. So it's like, hey, this is the active menu, and there's your item. There's no right or wrong rule necessarily here, but it's the rules that I'm choosing to play with. So feeling pretty good about that right now. Now, this is where it gets fun. So now we're looking at our form element here. Now, somewhere there is a submit. And this is our button here. And you can see like we have this black and this black thing. This should be our primary color, right? And remember how I said I want our primary color to be purple? Like this purple? Well, now I can actually, you know, use the same colors that I used here. So this is our primary action, and that's our primary thing. Now, there's two ways I could fix this. I could do it this way, which is totally fine. Or what I should have done in the first place is if I go back to that event form. So now we're just like cleaning up our code, kind of cleaning up after ourselves. If I go find our input, we could do class is button primary. And my guess is our form colors and all this here are going to override what we have there. Totally did. Mess something up. Forms, submit, Rails, classes. F submit. So this is the interesting one. I got to figure out if we're in the event create. So this will be like create event. And then class is this, and this should work, I think is what it's saying. So we have some cleanup to do here and up here for that matter. But if we go back to our form for a second, if I got rid of these two properties real quick, you can see all of a sudden, by just putting those classes, we've got all the behavior we wanted for our button out of the box. And that is awesome. Now you might be like, hey, wait, you just broke the form. Like you introduced a regression, Dustin. And you'd be right. If I go edit this, all of a sudden it says create event and it needs to say update event. So we really need to contextualize the CTA in the form. So if we go to like event create, or yeah, let's just pull it up this way. You know what it is? It's new. It's new, and it's edit. And you can see in both these cases, it's just like here's the render, here's update. So what I could do here is I could just set a new partial variable. So let's say I just want like let's just say the CTA is, you know, I don't know, i18n.t/, and then let's just do event. Here, let's go look at our internationalization for a minute. So here's validation. Let's do actions. And we'll do create, which could be create event. And we could do update, which is update event. And so this is just event actions create. And all of a sudden, I can use the CTA here. And then inside of the edit, I can do the same behavior, except make this one update. And if I go into the actual form now, this can just be the variable CTA. And ta-da, it says update all of a sudden. If I go back to our events page, now we go to new, and all of a sudden you see it says create. And now we're contextualizing our buttons, we're internationalized, and like fixing little issues like this becomes trivially easy now that we have all of like our colors and palette kind of figured out, as well as like the behaviors that we want. So we fixed form, I think, for the most part. Oh, nope, here we go. We got a color issue. So we're gonna want this to be variable. Let's do red 500 for now, because that's probably what we intended. So if I hit create here, and so let's just do a quick refresh, hit create, there's my red. That's a decent red here. I'm okay with that color. So we're gonna be happy with that color. Now let's look for the word background in here. And we can see that there's a couple of these that just have like a background going on. I don't know if I actually needed background here. It looks like I didn't. So check that out. Like, we're just getting rid of unnecessary colors. Now, the one thing we do have here is we have this border. And we can see like this is these borders. Well, we want these to be consistent for starters. So everywhere we have these colors, let's go ahead and just do color, and we're not going to call it input. We're going to give it a specific one. I think Zinc 500 is too dark, actually. So let's go 300. So now that it looks a lot closer, we're getting a color palette. Now we're kind of starting to get into the flavor of like, what do we think our colors are going to be? Now I'm thinking, let's try slate real quick. I like slate a little bit more. And what I think I'm finding with this is there's zinc and there's slate, and they're both valuable, but I think anywhere I'm using them, they're kind of interchangeable. So I think what I want to do is I want to change all of my zincs to slates and all my slates to zincs, or I want to turn all my, yeah. So let's just do that real quick. So I think with our purple, if that's going to be our key theme, zinc is the right color, slate needs to go. So we got to get rid of all of our slate is kind of what we're learning here. So anywhere we wrote slate, like this, and now it just becomes zinc. And now we can see that doesn't look too bad against our purple. That's pretty important to us. And then if we just kind of come in here now, we just rechange these to zinc now. If we come back and we see, hey, that looks all right. Doesn't look bad against our purple. And now we see slate, and we're just going to get rid of it from our color palette because it's just not going to work with the purple we selected. So now we're just kind of simplifying our color palette, but also giving us flexibility with it as we're going. What is next? What are our buttons? We did our drop down. So all of our colors are kind of aligned now. Oh, but we left a color here. And that's this just kind of bottom color thing. I think what I want to do instead is if we just did box shadow is var box shadow. We can see this is kind of what I wanted, but again, the box shadow is not the box shadow we want. So we're going to leave the box shadow because we agree we want it. It's actually what we were hoping to put there. But we want to put something better here. And so if we come, just making sure I'm not missing anything else. Nope. So what we can go do is we can actually go fix our box shadow all of a sudden. Now, I always forget the box shadow rules. So we're going to go look at box shadow. Because again, I always forget what the rules are. So the rule is, what is the rule? So it goes, we're doing 3 numbers and a color. So it's the 3 number. Okay, here we go. So it's 3 links, values, and a color. So we're going length, 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 color. And what are the 2, 3, or 4 link values? If you only have 2 values you're given, they are interpreted as offset X, offset Y. If the third value is given as interpreted blur radius. Okay, so offset X, offset Y. So we just have a Y offset, so at the bottom. And we're just saying like 0.1 rim, so like 16 times 0.1, so we're saying 1.6. We could maybe even go smaller than that. And then amount of blur, I think we can also reduce down. So if we do that, we can see we still have our nice little box shadow, but it's a lot crisper all of a sudden. So yeah, that feels like the box shadow I actually want to be running here. Nice and tight, it's there, but it's not too in our face. And this feels reasonable to me. So now we got color. So we've got our colors, we're using color variables, everything's good. So very, very, very happy on this. Okay, while we're here, I do want to fix one little thing with just this back to events thing. Since we've kind of created a way of doing it a little more consistently. So if we come back to our event index for a second, we'll see we have like the page area and we've got kind of our little actions bit, right? So what we can do is we can keep our nav, and then here, we're gonna just change our button here to back to events, just like that. get rid of all of this, clean this up, all of a sudden, back to events, new event. We've got our page layout the way we want it, and it's nice and easy to get to and fro. Now, if we go to the edit version of the same page, you'll notice that it's more or less identical, except there's 2 key differences. One is this, and the other was the other event, and now we've got 2 actions instead of 1. So if we bring these up now, let's throw these back into our list. And what we're going to see is if we go to the edit page now, we have a show this event or back to events. This could be, this could just be cancel. And this is back to events. So cancel will just bring us back to here. Back to events will bring us back to here. Now, you might be like, hey, shouldn't this cancel event probably just go next to update event? I'm looking at it and now I'm kind of like thinking that, but I would need to think through more of the UX of like getting this button inserted into this form. There's also a question of like, and now here's a nice little piece of business logic, because we haven't really talked about this yet. And maybe this is the next thing to do for a second. Once an event is in edit mode, what can and can't change? And I think the answer is everything can change. I haven't seen a single thing here that I'm like, yes, this can't change later. I think eventually there will be other data points that might be mutatable at a different point in time. But for right now, I think all of this is fine as is. I think the only time that the start date, the end date are immutable is, so if we go back to just our events here. So like, if I tried to edit these dates that are in the past, I think I'm okay with that. It's a completed event. So I think, and I think this is an interesting concept, but like, does event have state? And do we store that state? And I think the answer is no, we don't. But it's an interesting concept to play with, because like if it's because I can tell you, I mean, let's just look at it for a minute. Like, again, I'm borrowing ideas from StartGG here. But like, if we look, like registration is open, registration is open, registration is closing soon. Like these are derived states. But then you have events that are done and over with. So like, let's go look at CEO 2023 as an example. Right? It's marked as complete. The state is complete. If you go pull it up, there's not really anything totally different about this. Now, there's interesting cookie settings and whatnot. I have a lot of questions about this. But like, welcome to CEO 2023, and like, there's a lot of stuff here. But it is in a completed state, right? Now, I think the question is it important that this is in a completed state, and how are they calculating that? So that's just something interesting to think about. I mean, if we look here, it's just, you see the states of it kind of underneath the data that it belongs to, and a lot of this is derived, I think. So it's really kind of like what's going on with that event. Like, is the registration open? Is it upcoming? There's just a lot of information to kind of like parse and think through. So I think we're going to leave that alone for now, is our answer. But it is something for us to like continually think about, as we're like, hey, are certain things mutable, immutable? I think if we ever do introduce this thing of this thing is complete, like I think we prevent people from trying to edit dates on it. But I think there's other fields that are totally fine. Okay. Back to our to-do. So let's talk internationalization for a minute. So Rails has internationalization baked into its API. And the way it kind of works is there's just a bunch of translate functions, and you're able to just set the language as the page is loading. The question becomes, though, how do you determine what the user's locale should be? So one option they're offering us is we could just say, hey, go to the English or European version of the site, or English or Italian or Spanish or whatever version of the site using URL parameters. And I don't love that because, again, this is kind of like a user specific behavior, and like people don't want to go to like, I don't want to have to buy all the subdomains across all the regions for the site. Like that gets expensive kind of quick. I just want it to be like mywebsite.com, and like when you're using it you can set the language kind of quick. So I think, okay, the answer is they kind of answer this for us. So setting the locale with URL parameters, that's not quite what I was looking at. Setting the locale from user preferences, this is what we're looking for. So an application with authenticated users may allow users to set a local preference through the application's interface. With this approach, a user selected locale preference is persisted in the database and used to set the clause for authenticated request by that user. I think the answer is, yeah, this is good. This is actually kind of what we want, which is at the global level, we can just say, hey, if we have a current user, use their locale. But I think what we want to do now, I'm kind of curious where this function goes. All right, you can implement it like this in your application controller. Yeah, okay. What is a round action? I've never seen this. Never heard of this. Round action. Round filters are registered via round action. They are responsible for running their associated actions by yielding similar to how rack middlewares work. For example, in a website where changes have an approval workflow, an administrator could preview them easily by applying them within a transaction. Interesting. I've never heard of this. Well, the most common way to use filters by creating private methods and using before, after, or around action to add them. There are two other ways to do the same thing. The first is to block directly within the action. So I guess my question is, what's the difference between around action and before action? What's the part I'm not entirely following? So it's like a before and after. Yeah, some callback. Okay, I mean, I don't mind. I guess this means like the inbound request will come in one language and the outbound request will go in another language. I'm not totally against this. Now, here's where it gets interesting. We also have the idea that somebody's just going to our main root URL, which we haven't done yet. But like, here, let's just play with this for a second and kind of explain the thinking that I'm having for a second. So in here we have locales, and we have these two sets of locales, and these are, you know, this is English, this is devise, and it kind of split it up. I can reduce all this down just super quickly and just say, hey, all this devise stuff, just go ahead and stick it here at the end. And the reason I want to do that is, let me make sure I didn't miss anything here. It looked like it was okay. It's top level. Cool. So devise is kind of cool in that it was like trying to handle a lot of this for us, and it's like got some namespacing and scoping, but like errors are errors, and the language are the same. We really want these to be like one per language files. As the file gets too big, it might make more sense to break it up and then do, you know, some foldering and whatnot. But for now, like, this app's kind of small. So let's just say, like, for instance, let's just say this is in US, because that's actually what we said this is. This is going to be our default locale. Our next locale, though, is going to be, let's say we do Spanish, Spain. I think here, localization keys. Localization names. Nope. What are the tokens for localization? In US language codes. That's what I'm looking for. So if we were looking for like Spanish, right? Is there like in US in here? No, they didn't do it in this one. Is it in this table maybe? So we're looking for like English US as an example. ISO language codes. Is it this one maybe? Yeah, so in US is one, right? So maybe I should call it in US because that looks like it's the appropriate name. And if we go look at Spanishes, right? Let's say I wanted Spain. Spain is just ES. Okay, so Spain, you get to be special, right? I speak enough Spanish that I'm gonna play with this a little bit right now. But like effectively what we can do here is we can grab all of our same translations. What's wrong, Sony? Huh. So what we can do here, like, all right, so like we can get rid of what's at the top here. This is just kind of telling us how to do things. We can always look this back up later. It's in our history. But like, let's say we want this ES-US thing, all right? Hello world would be hola mundo, just as an example, right? Now that's going to be the only string I'm going to translate for now, because when somebody comes to the site, I want this to say like hello world. Oops. I want this to say hello world, and I want it to say hello mundo if they're in Spanish, right? Now the trick is, like, if I'm not a logged in user, like, what do I see it? How do I see the Spanish version of my site? Maybe the answer is like language is ES, right? And maybe I put some like language selector in the footer of my site. Like, people know how to use those for the most part, right? And this just needs to persist with them as they're going from page to page. And that's what this second guide is kind of talking about, managing the locale across requests. So like what this person is trying to do. So setting locale with the domain name, I'm not doing it with the domain. We'd also, from the subdomain, we're not doing the subdomain. We want to do it from, this is the example that we're trying to do. So we want, the most useful way for setting and passing the locale would be to include it in the URL params, as we did with I18 with locale params, locale action. Around action in the first example, we would just have to look at www books, locale JA, or whatever in this case. This approach has almost the same set of advantages as setting locale from the domain name. So what we could do here, just to throw it out there, is one of these does params, specifically this example. So what we can do here, so if we go to our application controller, because this is where we really want it to exist, right? And we might have an authenticated user at this point, but we know for sure we'll have an authenticated user in this context. So it's kind of two different versions of the same handler. So now what we can do is kind of in the private space of this, we can say, okay, let's switch the locale. And this is just going to say find locale or the default locale. In our case, this is English, and pass that action around. That's valid, Rails, I'll take it. So in our case, if I, language doesn't work, but locale should have been Spanish. And in this case, locale should have worked, and we should have gotten what I was hoping for. I say this and it doesn't work. So where did I mess up? Now, the question is, did I need to restart the server because I introduced a new language server? And the answer is I missed something, and that's okay. We're going to figure out why I just moved too fast. So if we do this, that's fine. And then if we go, you can change the default as translated to do this. The load path must be specified for any translations or lookup. To change the default lookup, look in the application RB. So if I look in the application RB, something in here is probably talking about locale. Nope, we don't have it. So I-18 permitted available in the application. So I think we just need to do this real quick. So if we go and just decide to do a change, we're just going to say, hey, our I-18 available locales are going to be EN US and Espanol, which in this case needs to relate to these two. So if I refresh real quick, because we've changed our a key setting in our application controller, I18N with locale says that ES is not valid. Now, if we look at params locale, that's Espanol, so that should have worked. But I18 n.default locale was EN. So what we need to also make sure is that we're not breaking everything. And maybe it's just easier to use the default locales. So let's just go ahead and just default back to the default locales and not mess with this. We might need to do regionalized localization in the future. That's not a huge lift and shift from what we were just doing, right? But for some odd reason, it's not liking what we got going on here. So what we need to do is we got to figure out why this is bugging effectively. So let's go through our debugger down. So if we do params locale, gives us Spanish. If we do or 18n default locale, it's giving us Spanish. That's not what we want. We want it to short circuit, which I think means we have to do an or here. And this is a fun part about Rails. They have different precedence operators for different behaviors. But I think what we really want is we want to say locale is equal to params locale. And then if locale isn't set it to the 18n default locale. And locale would stay as the ES. So I think that's what's missing here. I think we just need to change this to do, try to set it. If it's not set, give it the default return. And then EN is not a valid locale, and that's because in our application, I just need to reset this now. So if we come back here, this should have been working, because this should say, instead of hello world, this should say hola mundo. But maybe what I didn't do here is I didn't actually translate it. So this is the one thing we didn't check, and that's my bad. So if we do a translate here and we just say hello, and if we go to our ES YAML, it is, because this needs to be ES, not EN. Now all of a sudden, hola mundo. Now we're in Spanish. And then as we're clicking around, we end up losing our locale here. And we got to figure out how to pass that around or keep it stored somehow so the user doesn't lose it. So this is a behavior we need to make sure that we're persisting, like keep passing the params on every single request. So like in this case, so let's go finish reading the section on doing it as a query parameter, because that's kind of where we are. Setting from, okay, so we do this around the action first. We would have like this or that. Approach has almost the same set of advantages as setting the domain, namely that it's RESTful and in accord with the rest of the World Wide Web. It does require a little bit more to implement though. Getting the locale from params and setting it accordingly is not hard. Including in every URL and thus passing it through the request is. To include an explicit option in every URL, e.g. link to books that would be a tedious, probably impossible. Yeah, this is the thing I was just talking about. But Rails contains infrastructure centralizing dynamic decisions about URLs in its application control default URL options, which is useful precisely in the scenario. It enables us to set defaults for URL4 and helper methods dependent on it. By implementing overriding default options, we can include something like this in our application controller. So coming back to our application controller for a second. So default URL options. If we did this all of a sudden, so if I go click on Hola Mundo, and if I just start clicking around now, check that out. It persisted. It persisted with me. And that's exactly what we wanted. This is awesome. This is totally something we want. So that's totally something we want. It does impact readability, though, when the locale hangs at the end of the URL in your application. Moreover, from the architectural standpoint, locale is usually hierarchical above, and other parts of the application and URL should reflect this. You probably want URLs to look like EN Books, which loads the English locale, and NL Books, which loads the Dutch locale. This is achievable with the overriding default URL option strategy from above. You just have to set up your routes with scope. Now, I don't love that as much, but this wouldn't be a hard change for us to make later. So I'm going to just choose to not do it for now. But the thing we want to do, though, is we also want to start taking into account this piece right here. So what I want to do is I really want locale to work like this. If I have my current user, try to get their locale. Set it. If not, go to the next user, or go to the parameters. If not, go to the default. So now this is like a look at my database, try to see what this user has. If I know what it is, set it to that. Otherwise, do the other one. And so like, I don't have this concept of locale on a user right now, right? Well, how hard would it be for us to, set locale on a user now? So if we go to our users table, you can see we have a bunch of information, but we don't have locale. So guess what time it is? We could do a new migration, add locale to user. Oop, fat fingered. So let's add locale to user. So if we do add locale to user, this is going to be a add column users locale string default to English, and nil, or I guess it's null, is false. So every user is just going to get English by their default. I'm okay with this. There's a good default on the thing, and it allows us to just quickly have things. So let's test out our migration. Ben Rails DB migrate, right? So if we go and I refresh the server now, so if I refresh here, my with locale didn't work because ENUS is not a valid locale. And so what I need to do here is I need to do some truncation logic for now, which is just grab the first two elements off the string. So as you can see, all of a sudden, now if we go back to this page, you can see, even though it's in my parameters that the locale's there, it's actually my locale. Which I'm curious how to not have that, because like I don't want this to follow me around if it's not actually what it's set with. Like our locale should actually be EN in this case. So what is our locale? How do we fix this? This is my question. Don't know what the right answer is. So I18N locale. And this might just be a bad thing I'm doing trying to do it this way, but I'm curious if I can make it work. So, So default URL options. Here we go. It's getting the I-18N locale, which is, so if I hit this button, oh, it switched it in this case. So it immediately switched it to the locale. Oh, this could be cool. So if current user, so unless I have a current user. So if I have my current user, I don't want this to follow me around. And this is mad because I don't know why this is mad all of a sudden. Oh. Is it unless current user return that, else return maybe an empty version? You always have to return. So in this case, because I have my current user, so like let's say I try to reset my locale to Spanish. If I go click around, it'll just fall off now because I've said, hey, if I do have the current user, I know their locale. It's on their settings. Go ahead and ignore that and let's kick it over. So I think that's a reasonable localization effort. Now, what's really nice about this now, this is my favorite part, is this I-18 locale bit. If I go into our application HTML, so if y'all remember, there was this language here. Pretty sure I could just set this now to whatever the current locale is. So if I go look at our elements, look at our head, it's in English right now. Now let's just say, let's go do something I probably shouldn't do, but I'm going to do anyway. So let's just go say I get users first. Hopefully this is the user I want. Yeah. So user is users first. Oh, okay. I guess I should have not foobarred. So if I say user.locale, let's say it's just ES for now. And I say, okay, save this user, right? Well, all of a sudden I'm in Spanish, right? And I can see that my language is set to Spanish. So when I go to like the homepage now, check it out. Hola mundo. It worked. Everything I wanted worked. And because my browser's in set to English, it's like, hey, here's how you do it. Have you ever been to and this is the fun one, like, have you ever been to a website where it's like, hey, you read it, it's clearly in English, but it's like translating anyway? It's probably because they're not setting this. They just have their default and they just didn't think to overwrite it. So I can go and set the same user back to ENUS like this. Refresh. Now it's hello world. I don't know why the translation's still there. Page is not in Spanish. Page. I don't need the translate feature on right now. Thank you. But see, that's just like a cool little like feature we now have because we were just kind of paying attention to localization a little bit. So we got localization done. And that didn't take very long. So we just knocked out, I mean, let's just be real for a minute. We knocked out quite a few little features tonight. We've got colors, we've got a theme going on, we fixed some of our layouting, we've made some consistency in our layout, we've got some color, we can jump around things, we have localization. So we're doing a lot. So we just, I mean, heck, let's just go look at what we did tonight real quick. So we added autoprefixer, we cleaned up our CSS. We've made it so localization is now a first class citizen of what we're doing. We've dealt with some ordering features, and that's something we could add in the future. We've cleaned up how some buttons are rendered. We've made the app internationalized. We've enabled a second language. We've created our own time format, so these times aren't absolutely atrocious. So like this is in military time. Now, one thing I would do to change this is I want to find a different font for this table. The reason I want to find a different font is notice how like everything's not aligning. I really want to use a oh god, there's serif are font types. There's god, what's it called? Monospace. I really want a monospace font. And the reason I want a monospace font is I want these numbers to align. So like, let's look for monospace fonts real quick. And let's see if we can find one that we don't think is absolutely terrible. I don't know. Does anybody have a font they really like that they want to see? I've always liked the Oxygen. Never hated it. I did have a boss one time who hated any glyph that did this like double loopy G. That just absolutely hated it. Made him go absolutely batty. Which it's fine. I understand why. Never bothered me. But it's a good one. I don't know. Let's find a decent. I like Roboto. It's probably an overused font though. Why don't we just do? Let's see if we can just find like Oxygen font. Because what we could do is we could use Oxygen as our main font and then Oxygen Mono in the case of our tables. Oxygen Mono. Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're just going to get the font, get in the embed code. Or actually, let's see what Rails font best practices are, because I haven't looked at them in a while. Let's see what this Medium article says. What this person says is stick it into the fonts directory in your asset pipeline, and then in your CSS file, define your font face. That's it. I'm okay with that. So if we come in here and instead of an embed code, so if we say, what is Oxygen? It's got 3, 4, and 7. Okay, so we're very limited. Like we're only gonna have like 3 types of fonts here. Which I'm kind of okay with. So let's just go ahead and we added that, and then we want to look for Oxygen Mono. So now we can get that font. So now we have 2 in our bag. So 2 font families are selected, and let's just download them. And what we can do is, yeah, let's just put them on our desktop for now. And if we go unfurl that zip, where is that window? There we go. So if we go in here, we're going to see we have both fonts now. So I think we can just move these. So if we go put them into development, event platform, Rails, app, assets. Here, let's get all the way down to here. And now in here, what we can do is we just say a new folder called fonts. And let's just move Oxygen and Oxygen Mono in here real fast. So download our fonts. Okay, step 2 is using custom fonts in Rails. So to add the content of these fonts. Okay, so simply in your fonts, the file is usually OTF or TFF. So we have TIFF, we have a bunch of TIFFs. Now what we can do looks crazy, but you aren't going to overwrite them. To add the new font, go to the CSS file that needs to add the font, and then just do this. So let's go into our... All right, let's go into our app CSS now, right? And in here, we're saying we're going to find some font families. And we're going to say Oxygen, right? And Oxygen is going to have 3 sources. So it's going to be, let's see what this person wrote as an example. So in this case, they did assets. So they did assets fonts. And in this case, they did assets and just the name of the file. Okay. So assets, and then we're going to go Oxygen, and then Oxygen regular TFF. And then let's see if there's more we can do here. Wish it wouldn't have gone off the screen. Can we do URL assets Oxygen? But it's really, I want Oxygen bold and light, and these are GTF, and this is just true type. And then this could just be light, I think. I don't know if this is gonna work. Let's ask Copilot. Is this defined correctly? Okay, what's the difference between... Okay, it was the same thing. So I think there's just a question of like install Oxygen font to Rails. Let's just see. So like this person says source is this, source is that, URL. Ah, okay. I did do it wrong. So this one's going to be, it's font weight, font style are the 2 I'm missing. So in this case, this is my regular one. And then what I can do is I can grab, it's the same font family, but I've got 2 more of these. And the first one becomes, so this is the bold one as an example, and this can just become font weight is bold. And then over here, light. And this is just light. And then I'll theoretically take care of it. And then we want one more, which is just going to be font face. We don't have the bold italic, but what we do have is the mono regular, Oxygen mono, normal. So in theory, if I've done this all correctly, what I can do now is instead of my font family being Arial sans serif, I can just say it's Oxygen sans serif. We go to our website. Doesn't look terribly different, but it is different. And then what I can now do, or at least I think it's different. Let's switch it back to Arial for a second and see. They look the same. I don't think it actually... Yeah. I didn't think it worked. Something's not loading here. It couldn't find... could not find something. What could it not find? Could not find assets, oxygen, oxygen light, oxygen volt. Okay. Let's see if the answer is it needs to be assets, fonts. Okay, let's see if it's just fonts. So this is fun. So what we're finding here is our assets did not actually load what we were hoping they would load. So if we just kind of look at our assets, we don't see them. So this is interesting. So what are we doing wrong? That is the question. So if you do your font face, you set your URL correctly. Also for the config the asset to have contents of assets available under we use. Aha, that's what's missing. So we need to find in our asset pipeline here. This is what we're missing. So precompile additional assets. And what we need, we will need to restart our server, but the one we need, I'm pretty sure is this one right here. So Rails application config assets pass Rails root app assets fonts. So now if we have run this correctly, we're seeing that it still can't find fonts, but if we go back and change it to assets, still couldn't find it, and we change it to just the name. Now we're seeing the font we wanted. Hey, there we go. Now you can really tell it's there. And it might be too thin a font is maybe what I'm about to make the decision on. But you know what? That's okay. We're going to fix that later, I think is the decision here. And so what we will do though is for our, we have a font family here. I think this is still fine, but what we're going to do is we're going to set two variables. Well, actually, yeah. So we'll do font normal, and we want the right-hand side, and we're going to want font mono, which will be this. And so now what we can do is where we set the font family right here, this could be just font normal. And then in our, so we have a table in here somewhere, right? I want this one to have that monospace. Check this out all of a sudden. Now it's not perfect. Didn't do exactly what I wanted it to do. And in fact, I don't love exactly how it behaved. But what it did, and this is the thing I like about it, is now all of the fonts are aligned. So if we're trying to read this kind of vertically, see how all the numbers are actually lining up now? That's kind of a big deal. It's hard to explain exactly why that's such a big deal. But when you're reading things, you kind of want certain digits and characters to align when you're reading through it. And this small change makes all the difference in the world. So I think what I want to do though, and this is where I think I just need to fix it, is it's going to be if a TD has the style of mono, I want it to do what I just did. And in this case, what I'm going to do is if we go back to our event index, there's a couple rows that I do want this mono on. And it's really going to be this one for our currency. And then we're probably going to do it for all of these date times. And now all of a sudden you can see like we have this nice alignment of things. Now there's just so much information here. And what we might be learning and this is an okay thing for us to learn right now, is that this is just too much information for one screen already, and we need to change it. We also set some additional rules here, like this mono. We want white space we don't want it to wrap, right? This is actually the behavior we wanted. We wanted this to like perfectly align. So now when I'm scanning this table, I can see like, hey, they're all October. They're all on the 24th. They're all, hey, look at this digit. It's in the same place in every single place I'm looking. And now there's this consistency that makes the application a lot more user-friendly. Now we can get our fonts better, and this is where we would work with a designer to make this look a lot better. But these are just like little behaviors we just want to make sure we're being kind of aware of as we're doing things. So this is helpful for like a quick scan. In all likelihood, this isn't the screen that a user might be looking at, and we might find like, hey, this isn't actually what they want. They're looking, maybe they only want like 2 pieces of information. They want the name and they want the start at, and these other 2 pieces, like maybe these other 3 fields are just absolutely devastating their user experience. We'd fix that. That's something we need to investigate. That's something we'll have to look at. But that's a pretty awesome quick fix that we did, and now we have fonts. Let's check that out. Yet another feature done. What else are we missing? What else can we do? Is there anything we could do quickly tonight? Is that the one I want to do? I don't know. If anybody's around and has a preference, ask away. I'm also realizing started at 7:30. Only going for at least 30 more minutes. I might call it early, kind of considering where we are right now. But that was a pretty good session, if you ask me. Like that's, I mean, let's do it. You know what? Let's review. I always take longer to review than I intend to, but let's talk about things. Also, let's go get ignore. God, I always have to get ignore this. It's anything that's .ds_store. Okay. So let's go through some stuff. Okay. So let's go ahead and just like grab these and just say, you know, add fonts or add font files. We enable autoprefixer. So this is going to make all our CSS real nice. This is just a mass CSS cleanup. So this was like add fonts, CSS colors. What else did we do? We fixed that. That was a little bug. We've got, we fixed the box shadow. Add CSS variable, add font, CSS variables, and is there anything else in here that we just like generally cleaned up? Oh, and add and reset. That's a pretty significant CSS night. If we look at our application YAML here, and we'll have to add a few other things actually if we're going to do this one. So let's go and let's add all of our localization that we did. Let's add our schema change to our user. Let's fix that. Just looking around if there's anything I'm missing real fast. Nope. So this is add localization support. Add localization support, period. That's what we did. And then if we kind of go in here, it's just kind of, this is mostly just UI cleanup for the most part. Yeah, this is just kind of like event UI, cleanup events UI. Add custom datetime formatter. enable fonts in asset pipeline, because that's exactly what this does. And what's this last change? Oh, add DS store to get ignore. That's a pretty sizable chunk of change, if you ask me. It's a pretty feel-good chunk of change as well. So like, we're getting to the point where there's a lot of things we could be doing, a lot of things we just haven't done. So like, we haven't taught. I mean, we've kind of only been circling the last few streams on a few pages, and it's really because I'm like, hey, is it really interesting to go deep into, you know, the depths of some of these events? So like, if I go to like this 2023 event, like we've got sessions, we've got speakers, like we haven't even touched on these concepts. So we kind of like, let's take a step back for a minute, diagram, and kind of talk about where maybe we can go next time. So like, I've started to talk about a little bit of like, okay, we've got multi-conferencing, we have all these different event types, right? We've talked about like how start dates and end dates are going to go. We've talked about like the crazy complexity that is our data model, and we got our data model working pretty well, if you ask me. We've got this other entire model that we haven't even talked about if we wanted to get into esports. I'm just seeing if there's anything else. So like, there's all of this other. Oh yeah, this is the other side of it. So like, there's this idea that you could have a speaker who's not associated to an event and a session that's not associated to an event, right? Like right now we have this very like, a session must belong to an event and a speaker must belong to an event. And this is, so, oh, what am I trying to say here? What I'm trying to say is we've kind of created a useless platform so far, in that we've only created an administration, but we haven't actually created a way for users to interact with those systems appropriately. So I think what we need to really do, and this is also kind of why I haven't gone into sessions and speakers yet, because we haven't really approached these from the right angle. I think what we really need is like, when I go into, I think we need to start storyboarding, I think is actually what I'm saying. So let's start kind of storyboarding the app a little bit. Let's maybe draw it down here. Okay, so kind of the user story we have is, I don't even know if it needs to be that big. Let's see. So this is like the marketing lander, right? We're going to make this much smaller. Okay. So like, you land on the marketing site and there's kind of two paths you can go. You have there will be three eventually, but you have, for now, let's just focus on this side. So side one is you have kind of the, I'm an event organizer and I need to go organize an event. The second path here is I'm a speaker, not an event speaker, just a speaker. And these two things have different paths, but they relate to the same data. So like, as an event organizer, right? Let's talk about what I want to do. First things first is I want to see my events. Like, I want to manage events. And managing events has a few different complexities assigned to it. So one of these is I want to be able to, well, let's talk about all of them. So like, I want to manage events. What does that mean? Like, one, I want to, you know, open registration, which means, you know, accept tickets and get people to pay to come. I need to open a CFP. This could also be, if I decide to go the esports route, this could also be like TO applications. It's like, hey, I would like to apply to be your TO. Like, help organizers and help lead organizers find community organizers that can help them, right? I want to, you know, I want to monitor my sales and well, just monitoring sales in general. And I think that's kind of like the main things. I mean, there's a fourth here, And this fourth one's kind of questionable, but this is manage event content. Now, the reason I say this one's kind of questionable is this one's got this like if invite only or fully managed event. So like you're going to have like how do I frame it? So think like a tech conference where they open a CFP. They don't need to curate all the sessions because the speakers are going to do that for them. However, if you're like a company running a thing, you're just, or like think for Self-Ship, like they planned out every single session and talk before that happened. Now, a couple of those were planned and they just need to go interim. Others, they, I guess, did receive CFP for. If we go the event route, like there's going to be tournaments that are ran within the event, and those are going to be very similarly run. So like there's stuff to do here, and this number 4 is a big bullet. 3, but really like 2 and 1 are kind of big storyboarding things that we should probably flesh out more. Now, as a speaker, right, let's talk about what I want to do as a speaker. I want to, create talks, submit talks to events, and maybe this is the interaction we want to focus on right now, is like so we kind of have, okay, let's talk about the first story. So story 1 is as an event, I want to open a CFP and allow users to, or allow speakers to apply. Second story here is as an event, I want to open registration and allow, actually, let's just, as a speaker, I want to create a talk that I can send to multiple CFPs. As a speaker, I want to monitor all of my CFPs, or all of my submitted talks and their status. A little dashboard like, hey, I mean, here, let's go. Let me do this off screen just in case. I don't really want y'all to be able to see what I'm about to show. Let's do some quick. Oh, how can I fix this real quick? Well, this is good enough. So this is kind of like what the session eyes looks like. Like here are all the talks that I have submitted to different conferences and what the status of them are. Now, I think there's a little extra information I would like on the screen, like, hey, when did I submit? Like, when did I submit? When was the CFP closed? And like, what's going on here? And I think there's more I would like to dig in on this, but this is definitely like a thing. So like, this is kind of a feature that we want to build kind of alongside the speaker route, right? Now, there's the other side of this, is as an organizer, I want to review submissions after a CFP is closed and invite users. And this is a pretty complex interaction. I'm probably missing more here, but like, let's think about it. So I open the CFP. So I set the CFP date. So here, let's think through each of these a little bit more. So like as an event, I want to open a CFP and allow speakers. So what does this mean? I need to set a CFP open and end date, similar to similar to registration, right? There needs to be a form to submit a talk. Now, this gets interesting. This can be existing or new talk, right? Now this is a well, I'll get to it in a second. There's a behavior here on the review side that I want to maybe talk about, but let's actually see what open CFPs for tech conference. Let's see if there's any like open CFPs right now that we could just like click into real quick and see like what the call for paper looks like. So it's name, email, affiliation. Like this is most, so title talk, title abstract, do you need sponsorship for travel? So like there's some questions. So we're getting into like custom questions. So like questions like travel sponsorship, track submission, like multi-track conferences. I'm trying to think this is a good one, but I would like to find a multi-track conference real fast. I don't know any of these, so it's hard for me to just like click in and be like, yeah, this is a multi-track conference. I have no idea. Maybe React Brussels. I've heard good things about them. Are they multi-track? So like, oh, okay, yeah, this is good. So this is like, we need questions like track, like which track. This is like multi-track conference. We need rules markdown area, so to speak. Right? Like this is the rules. Like here's what we're like what it should be relevant to, conference session, deadline to CFP, physician title, country, email, talk title, description, full bio, hobby, just a bunch of speaker profile information, sponsorship questions. That's a whole nother feature set we need to talk about too. Is like we can probably just put that on the back burner at some point, but like features, like we need sponsors as a feature. We like tracks for multi-track conferences. We still need to build out registration and ticketing as a whole module. And you can see like this is getting to be a pretty beefy list, and we haven't even like gotten past some of this stuff. But so yeah, so we'll need to think through that. So we'll need like rules, markdown. This doesn't look like a multi-track, but there's important information in here. So thank you, Brussels. Man, JS Nation might. I always forget. JS Nation sometimes does, sometimes doesn't. Pick categories. Categories are tracks. But yeah, there's just like custom questions in here. So we'll have to think through some of that. But there's definitely like profile information that we might want to enable, disable. But yeah, there's some criteria here. Okay. So this should take care of most of the stuff we need for kind of step one. Okay. So as a speaker though, I want to kind of create my talk. So like this might be pretty easy, but I need a speaker profile. That speaker profile needs to have information like name, title, company, t-shirt, URLs, etc. Right? Now, some of this might get a little complex, and it's also like how much of it do you actually need on your profile? How much of it is like actually custom fields, how much of it is just like standardized across everything. And I think this is where things are getting very interesting. Um, but yeah, the talk needs a talk title plus abstract. And then this is a nice to have feature, but like let's just introduce the idea of like tagging. If a conference wants specific topics for this could power a recommendation system, so to speak. As a speaker, I want to monitor all the submitted talks and their status. So like this is just, this is a connection between, speaker talk and conference and status. I probably want to see like CFP close date. I probably want to see talk submission, maybe some high level metadata, like if it was a tracked conference or whatever. But that's like a detail page. Like there's like high level things. So like, and status could be something like submitted, in evaluation, rejected, accepted, waitlisted. Like these are some ideas. And there's definitely some emails that go out. Now, the most complicated piece of this is probably this one down here. So as an organizer, I want to review submissions after a CFP is closed and invite users. Okay, so, or speakers, I should say. So I think this is where like a bulk of like really cool functionality can start going. So first one is like, I need a list of all talks. Now it depends on how they want to do it, but is this a blind or even double blind review process? Like how are organizers reviewing? Like, is it just one organizer just goes through and picks what they want, something like render, or is it something like, I don't know, let's say Connect Tech or a conference like that? KCDC is another good one, where like they anonymize who submitted. They just read all the submissions and like they accept, they pass a bunch, and then it's a committee, like 3-pass situation. I think there's some interesting things, but like there's different kind of review processes that get baked in here. So like this needs to support something like committee blind review, something like a just single person pass fail. I don't know. There just needs to be some different process. We have to think through all that. There needs to be a way to send email for accept and reject and waitlist. Or so send email for different statuses once eval is complete. And it could just be, you have your definitive, we're not going to accept you. You have your definitive passes. You have your waitlist. I mean, no, that should cover all your cases, right? So I think these are a few states that I would want to consider. And I think the cool thing is, could we do some type of, AI detector? So this is something I know, like it's a review helper, and it's almost like AI for detecting AI usage. Which there's services for that. There's a one called, I want to say it's Originality AI or whatever. It's like you just do like a quick fact checker, and like if these things are, you have to be aware of like the false positive in this, but it's almost like how much of this was like generated by AI or at least influenced by AI. That being said, there's some level of human stuff, so it's almost like AI for detecting AI usage, but this is a flag. This isn't a thing. Like every single AI thing here can't be automated. It just needs to be like a flag, and you open it, you go like it's not it's an influencer in your decision making. Maybe some tagging for keyword, like maybe it's like keyword tagging. I'm sure there's like a bunch of like things that something like Sessionize probably does have that I'm not aware of. Like Sessionize features. Just curious. So like if we go look at their features and like they have like an accept queue, a decline queue, accepted. This is kind of handy, and like this is I would love to I'd love to look and see how they're doing some of this. This is actually kind of an interesting problem. I just said the AI thing. It's like, so with the first talk submission, make it easy. So it's like, hey, do the talk. Cool. That's what we did. Evaluate your submissions. And it's like, they're doing evaluations, rank these 3 sessions, first, second, third. So like they give you a few. It looks like this one's not a blind. So easily curate content that will make your conference stand out. I mean, that's neat. And then everything in one place, manage you and your speakers. You can look at all your speakers. Your speakers are rock stars, treat them as such. So like internal messaging, build an event schedule that doesn't have to be hard. Like that's kind of neat. I'm sure Sessionize probably does everything I'm trying to do with this platform, but better. So like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yeah, I'm doing better than. No, I'm kind of recreating what they have here in some ways. But it's interesting to see like how they're managing all their content and whatnot. Um, so like speaker management, custom form, like this is almost like everything here is basically table stakes for building whatever we're building and launching it if we wanted to build it and launch it. I don't necessarily think like we need to do everything here, but like I have some of the same ideas as them. Like, oh, I guess applied AI is the name of the talk. That's what they did. So maybe not, but it's like they have like the key information and it's just kind of like tracking. I'd love it if it was not like, again, this comes into like the blind double blind conversation of like some conferences are just going to bypass some of this and be like, hey, I know you, just submit a talk, I'll accept it. Which I have feelings about that, but it's how they make their money. So I'm not going to like sit there and be like, nah, you're doing it wrong. But I think that's like helpful things. I think tagging, like this is cool. Tagging's helpful. Scheduling the events, like you know what your hours are each day. So some type of scheduler is handy. I mean, let's see, evaluations, guided evaluation process for your content team. 3 types of evaluations: comparison, star ratings, and yes no. Create unlimited number of evaluation plans, 1 for each group of sessions. Curious what this means. Assign evaluators to each session or let everybody evaluate everything. This is definitely a feature that we should consider. Detailed evaluation statistics and exports. Optional anonymous mode for unbiased evaluation. See, I think this should be the default. I don't think this should be optional. I mean, you can disable it, but eh. Fields can be hidden from evaluations to protect privacy. I agree with that. Send accepts and declines and ask for confirmation. Include individual feedback with the client and emails. I mean, I think that's great. I mean, I think all of this is just positive. I think, yeah, I think that's kind of what we need to, sorry, I'm trying to find where we're. I think this is, if we keep going with this, I think this is where we're going to keep going with this. I think this is a pretty interesting problem space. So yeah, there it is. Here we are. I think that's where we're going to end today. I think that's it. That was fun. Thanks for coming. I appreciate y'all joining me today. We'll pick up next week and probably start with some of this like submission stuff that I was just talking about. I mean, that seems like the next logical place to go. So happy Thursday. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. If you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.